Chapter 1254. The small boat had traveled for an unknown number of miles, but the blood sea was still as boundless as before. Amidst the waves of the blood sea, this small boat was shuttling back and forth, lightly like a swallow. No one knew when, but the waves on the blood sea had become even higher, and each wave was even higher than the one above Fan Wujia's head, crashing towards the small boat. At this moment, in the distant horizon, against the boundless, blood-red background, a tiny black appeared before everyone's eyes. As the black gradually approached them, Fan Wujia could clearly see that this black was not some island or ship, but an incomparably huge pincer. This pincer was several times larger than the giant Kuin they had seen before, and the huge shell on its back rode the wind and waves like an island in a sea of blood. As the giant pincer drew closer, Fan Wujia could see that it was not just a small island. It was practically a miniature continent. The waves the giant pincer had stirred up were already several dozen feet high, and the small boat was like a boat sailing through the mountains. The shell of the giant pincer looked like it had been cut by an axe, and it was clear that it had been weathered by the passage of time. It was impossible to tell how many years this divine pincer had lived in the blood sea, judging from the marks on the shell that carried the aura of destruction. The Tao of destruction that had been inflicted 100 million years ago was left behind. And before that, the divine pincer's body still bore the huge wounds of destruction that did not contain the aura of destruction. The hideous wounds that had healed reminded everyone of the terrible attacks that this divine pincer had survived. The oldest wound on the divine pincer's body dates back to 100 million years ago, and this divine pincer should have lived for a very long time by then. Fan Wu Jia's expression was grim. In other words, this divine pincer is not the descendant of a Xiantian life form that fell into the blood sea. It is a Xiantian life form that fell into the blood sea and has yet to die. Do you see the scars on its body? Fan Wujia said, the time when those scars were formed is very close to the time when the primordial era was broken. This could be a god that lived through the primordial era. After the primordial era was broken, it could still survive after falling into the ultimate ruins. Taoist Yuan Yu exclaimed in horror. This divine beast must be incredibly powerful. Quickly turn around. We can't become enemies with this divine beast. The mummy stood at the bow of the boat and watched as the divine turtle turned around slightly and swam towards the boat. The waves it raised formed a wall of water that was as tall as the sky. The blood-red wall of water came crashing down from the direction of the giant turtle, as if it was going to smash the tiny boat into pieces. We're here, the mummy said calmly. This divine turtle will be your gathering place. Hearing this, Fan Wujia and Yuan Yu also came back to their senses, and they became even more fearful of the organization behind the mummy. This divine turtle was probably one of the most terrifying monsters in the Blood Sea impasse. However, even such a peerless monster had to build a base for them. Just based on this divine turtle that was supporting their holy land, the organization behind the mummy could be said to be one of the most troublesome organizations in the entire Blood Sea impasse. What a grand display! Yuan Yu gasped and said, "This is a show of strength to us." I still think that the boatman who might be the ferryman of the river Styx is even grander. Fan Wujia whispered, that boatman knows a lot of terrifying secrets. If he were to reveal them, he would probably turn the entire world upside down. Compared to the great secrets of the underworld, the divine turtle that survived the primordial era is nothing. Sit tight, the boatman shouted, and with a push of the wooden oar, the whole boat moved horizontally in the raging waves, and like an arrow, it shot towards the shell of the divine turtle. On the shell of the divine turtle, there were dozens of dark and heavy divine mountains, each of them exuding an awe-inspiring aura. Each of them was an extraordinary piece of divine soil. The divine turtle carried the divine mountains on its back, and Taoist Yuan Yu found them very familiar. The black divine mountains were majestic, and they were surrounded by mist. They were very mysterious, and in the depths of the mist immortal light shone, and even Taoist Yuan felt a trace of pressure. The vast immortal light, every strand of it had an extremely vast aura. From tens of millions of miles away, it was so oppressive that one could not move. This is an unknown divine soil, and it might be a fragment of the divine soil formed when the primordial era was broken. I have seen this kind of inextinguishable immortal light in a terrifying world that was said to be formed by the fragment of Mount Buzhou. That world was said to be the Taoist field of celestial Lord Guangqing. Yuan Yu felt a toothache. The emergence of this divine mountain made him feel a trace of danger. The divine soil carried by the divine turtle and the divine mountain that sank into the ruins of End. Fan Wu Jie said numbly, could it be 2 of the 5 divine mountains carried by the divine turtle that fell into the ruins of End? Years ago, the Heaven Emperor ordered the divine turtle to carry the 5 celestial mountains of Daiyu, Yuanjiao, Fenghu, Yingzhou, and Penglai. These divine mountains were 30,000 miles in diameter, and the distance between each mountain was 70,000 miles. They were the residences of the overseas immortals. However, the giants of Dragon Count Country hooked up the divine turtle that carried the 2 divine mountains of Daiyu and Yuanjiao. It caused the 2 divine mountains to sink into the ruins of End. This happened before the primordial era was broken. Could this divine turtle be the divine turtle that carried the divine mountains back then? Could the divine mountains on its back be the legendary Daiyu and Yuanjiao continents? Fan Wu Jie said with a trembling voice, if it really was the divine mountains of Daiyu and Yuanjiao, it would be an incredible divine soil that could protect anyone from the destructive tribulation power in the ruins of End. Fan Wu Jie gave the mummy a strange look, as if saying, you have 2 great divine mountains, but you still ended up in such a miserable state. Don't tell me you are trying to trick us. The mummy smiled bitterly and said, this divine turtle is not the divine turtle that carried the 5 divine mountains back then, but its descendant. What it carries on its back is not the divine mountains of Daiyu and Yuanjiao, but the fragment of Daiyu. This divine turtle is not as strong as its ancestor, so it can only carry the remains of the divine soil and divine mountains. Moreover, the depths of the divine mountains are very dangerous, even more dangerous than the destructive tribulation power. No one has ever walked out of it alive. The mummy said bitterly, we dare not get too close to the divine mountains, afraid that the ominous things buried in the divine mountains will stain the divine soil with blood and awaken some terrible beings. The fragment of Daiyu was grabbed from the bottom of the sea by my king before he was drowned in the sea of blood. There's a great secret hidden in it. Legend has it that the divine mountains of Daiyu and Yuanjiao fell into the ruins of End because someone wanted to cover up some of the traces left on them. We cannot afford to offend an almighty being who can plot to sink 2 divine mountains. The secret he wants to cover up is not something we can investigate. Since ancient times, the ruins of End has been like a trash can. Before the slaughtered demon ancestor buried the scariest piece of trash in here, it had already buried countless secrets. These secrets may be quiet here, but they can also kill people. Yuan Yu warned, just open one eye and close the other. The divine mountains shone with immortal light, but in the eyes of the people, it was no longer sacred immortal light. It was a deadly demonic light. The sinking of 2 divine soil immortal mountains had caused the death of countless ancient immortals. The secret that such an existence wanted to cover up was a real, life-threatening talisman for the acquired heaven ants after the destruction of the primeval world and the dead remnants of the old tribes of Rahu and Azura. At this moment, Fan Wu Jie suddenly understood why the mummy and the others did not dare to go deep into the divine soil even though they were trapped in the blood sea. It was just like the number 5 on the Chaos Top 10 death-seeking ranking. You know too much. In this world, there was no harm in knowing less about other things besides the great Tao. Fan Wu Jie was speechless. The boat steadily leaned against the shell of the divine turtle, and the boatmen began to chase them off the boat. Fan Wujie originally thought that the boatman was the organization's special guide to the divine mountains, but now it seemed that the boatman was just bringing outsiders into the divine mountains. Perhaps his real job was still to ferry people in the Nether Blood Sea. Here comes another one. A hunchbacked old man, naked under the sunlight, said angrily when he saw Fan Wujie and the others coming up the mountain. Another middle-aged Tao lord next to him stared nervously at the depths of the divine mountain and divine soil, calculating with his fingers. He only glanced at Fan Wujie and the others when he saw the mummy. He said, disdainfully, dead remnants of the Azura clan. Then he saw Yuan Yu wearing a Taoist robe and sneered, another unlucky bastard. I'm afraid he won't live for more than 300 years. When Yi Shiwen saw Fan Wujie, the things that Fan Wujie used to disguise himself as a giant assassin of the Devil Path had long since been eroded by the destructive storm. The iron rings that hung on his body were rusted to the point where only a little shape remained. The tattoos on his body were also blurred and indistinct. His head of colorful hair had become a dirty knot that had not been washed. His hair was tangled together in a dirty knot. In addition, he was wearing a tattered leather vest that did not cover his entire body. His overall style was very decadent. Messy and broken, dirty and elegant formed a contradictory combination on his body. Fan Wujie's entire body was in tatters. His rustic, heavy metal robes, after being smeared with a thick layer of dirt, were surprisingly pleasing to the eye. Fan Wujie had just fallen into a dangerous situation, and his energy hadn't been depleted by the annihilation storm yet. He had become numb and spirited, and his unique attire made the middle-aged Tao Lord feel a little uneasy. The Tao Lords in the dangerous place mainly relied on their temperament to determine whether a person was new to the outside world. The more graceful and extraordinary the person, the later they came. On the contrary, those who were dirty, battered, and had a wretched appearance might have stayed in the dangerous place for a period of time. This was because the Tao Lords in the outside world were the rulers of the world and had lived in the body for countless years to nourish their qi. Even the most unbearable of people would have a powerful aura deposited in their bones. But after coming here, no matter how extraordinary their bones were, no matter how arrogant they were, the destructive tribulation would wear them down. At that time, the Tao Lords and Golden Immortals could not help but have a heavy aura of lethargy. This was the first time the middle-aged Tao Lord had seen a contradictory combination of decadence and arrogance like Fan Wujie. Subconsciously, his fingers paused, and a subtle change occurred. The middle-aged Tao Lord could not care about anything else. The veins on his forehead bulged as he shouted, "Everyone, pay attention! The northwest wind is coming." As soon as he finished speaking, he faced the northwest and opened his mouth. The hunchbacked old man jumped to his feet and opened his mouth in the northwest direction. His neck was about a foot long, and he looked like a king. At this time his collar wriggled, and only then did Fan Wujie and the others realize that it was not a hunchback at all. They were obviously 8 large sarcomas, and on the sarcomas grew distorted organs and faces. Their mouths were also the size of a palm, and the sarcomas' mouths were filled with messy teeth. In addition to the hunchback old man's main head, all 9 of his heads opened their mouths towards the northwest. It looked a little funny, but it was even more creepy. The 9-headed turtle. Yuan Yu whispered to Fan Wujie. As soon as the two turned around, they realized that the corpse had disappeared. Only then did they see that it had quickly climbed up a nearby hill. Suddenly, a dozen or so Tao Lords and Golden Immortals appeared in the vicinity. They were either old or withered, but no one would suspect that they were a group of corpses. They were all incredibly excited, and one of them looked towards the northwestern divine mountain with eyes brimming with tears. "It's been 3,000 years. The northwest wind has finally arrived. We won't starve to death. We won't starve to death." an old man who was trying his best to maintain the demeanor of an immortal. But unfortunately, the effect was not very good because of his messy hair and beard and his twitching eyes. He muttered, "Eating wind and drinking dew, an immortal's home." The crowd was inexplicably happy, and Fan Wujie and Yuan Yu were confused. However, it was never wrong to follow the crowd. Yuan Yu took the lead and climbed up a small hill nearby, attracting the angry glares of the strange people on the nearby hills. A strange wind came from the depths of the sacred mountain, blowing the celestial light in the depths of the celestial ground and causing it to shake. Countless melodious sounds that sounded like the tinkling of jade rings could be heard. What followed was a refreshing fragrance that made people feel relaxed and happy. Fan Wujie only took a sniff, and he felt his magic power being drained away. His expression changed drastically, and he shouted, "This is the fragrance of spirit medicine. Old Taoist, do you smell it?" For it to emit such a mysterious fragrance, there must be an immortal herb growing in the depths of the divine mountain. Such a strong medicinal fragrance, the spirit medicine inside must have grown for countless generations. Only the incredible celestial ground of the Dayu fragment could have the fortune to support so many generations of spirit medicine. Old Taoist! Fan Wujie turned around excitedly, only to see old Taoist Yuan Yu gulping down all the essence of the medicinal fragrance that was drifting toward their hill along with the northwest wind. Old Taoist Yuan Yu kept his mouth shut, and it was difficult for him to digest the fortune. Fan Wujie turned back to look, and all the old monsters around him had their mouths wide open. There wasn't even the slightest bit of medicinal fragrance left for him. Fan Wujie was so angry that the 3 corpses god jumped. He looked at old Taoist Yuan Yu and said with an unfriendly expression, "Fellow Taoist, your face is red, and you're sweating profusely. Are you feeling unwell? That medicinal fragrance must be poisonous." Fan Wujie used the time-true water. Something blown out from this strange, celestial ground can't possibly be a spirit medicine or a rare treasure. Fellow Taoist, don't panic. I'll help you vomit it out. I'll force that strange, poisonous mist out. Old Taoist Yuan Yu was busy swallowing that mouthful of medicinal qi of good fortune. However, that mouthful of medicinal qi of good fortune was too big for him to digest in a short period of time. Seeing Fan Wujie's unfriendly expression, he hurriedly waved his hand to indicate that he was fine. But Fan Wujie's portion was swallowed by him, and he was forced to sign an unfair agreement to collect the sand of time. With all these new and old grudges mixed together, he hated old Taoist Yuan Yu so much that the roots of his teeth were itching. Fan Wujie's eyes flashed coldly, and he sprayed the time-true water at old Taoist Yuan Yu's face. Old Taoist Yuan Yu was so anxious that he couldn't help but say, "Little Fan, stop!" As soon as he opened his mouth, golden medicinal mist sprayed out. Fan Wujie looked at his own good fortune with a conflicted expression. Logically speaking, he should be rushing forward to snatch his spoils of war. But this was spat out from the mouth of an old Taoist, a wretched old Taoist whose face was wrinkled like the skin of a tangerine and who frequented the brothels every day. Rationally, Fan Wujie knew that a Taoist lord's Taoist body was tranquil, and there shouldn't be any filth in it. But emotionally, he couldn't accept the possibility that he had swallowed the saliva of an old man. At this time, a sharp laughter reached Fan Wujie's ears, and he heard a slippery voice say, "You don't want it? If you don't want it, I want it." Then he saw a slender, greasy old man who was as thin as a loach jump up to his side. He couldn't wait to put his face close to old Taoist Yuan Yu and swallowed the golden mist at the corner of his mouth. This time, it was old Taoist Yuan Yu's turn to have an interesting expression. Fan Wujie looked at the 9-headed hunchbacked old man beside him and shook his head, regretfully. What a pity that he beat me to it. It wasn't that these people couldn't wait, but in the eyes of the Blood Sea tribulation, there was nothing that could withstand the destructive tribulation power. None of them had anything on them, not even a jade bottle to store the medicinal mist, so they could only rely on their mouths. Fan Wu Jia had a conflicted expression on his face. He could use the time light true water to reverse time and extract the golden medicinal mist from old Taoist Yuan Yu's mouth. But what could he use to store it? If he didn't have a way to store it, then wouldn't it just benefit others for nothing? So Fan Wu Jia stretched out a hand and made a gesture to write it off. He used the condition of writing off the unequal treaty they had signed before as a condition to write off the matter. The strange gust of wind came from the northwest, carrying with it some things from the celestial ground. Fan Wu Jia and the group of old monsters used their mouths to catch them. One after another, spirit herbs that shone brightly and brimmed with immortal energy fell into their mouths, and their scrawny bodies began to fill up at a visible rate. Just as this feast of northwest wind was about to come to an end, an ordinary-looking jade bead floated to the outside of the celestial ground. Fan Wu Jia didn't notice anything, but Yuan Yu saw it, and his eyes almost popped out. Ignoring the undigested medicinal mist in his mouth, he shouted, "Fan boy, let's work together!" That jade bead is the fruit of the tree of immortality, the real tree of immortality. Fan Wu Jia heard this and looked at the jade bead again. A rumor flashed through his mind, and he immediately used the time light true water. The time red dust sand in the true water turned into countless red dust barriers, creating countless space-time labyrinths in the direction the jade bead came from. The reversal of space-time and the sand of time that consumed one's lifespan trapped all the old monsters that were rushing toward the jade bead for a breath's time. At this time, Yuan Yu turned into a wisp of soul and floated behind the jade bead. He used a transformation spell and temporarily transformed into a jade bead. Although it was only a temporary transformation of magic power, it was enough to fool Dao lords who didn't look closely. Fan Wu Jia's cosmic light, mortal dust, maze had only trapped those old monsters for a brief moment. In the next moment, they joined forces and tore apart the universal barrier. They surrounded the jade bead and fought fiercely. Their powerful divine powers instantly tore apart the surrounding space. Only the fragment of the celestial continent on the back of the divine turtle remained unmoved and undamaged. Fan Wu Jia quickly turned into a streak of light and escaped, while old Taoist Yuan Yu had long since disappeared into the space-time maze. The Kunlun Mountains have pearls and jade trees. The Langxian tree actually looks like pearls, and its texture is like fine jade. In the west of the classic of mountains and seas, it is said that there is an evergreen tree on which there are 3 men serving the tree. Before the primordial world was broken, it was recorded that there were only 3 deity lands that possessed the immortal divine medicine. One of them was the Kunlun immortal world, where the Queen Mother of the West had the immortal medicine. The second was Mount Wu. Where there was Mount Wu, there was the yellow bird in the west. The arch medicine, 8 vegetarian temples. The yellow bird belongs to the shaman, the mysterious snake. The third was the 3 islands of Penglai. However, the 3 islands of Penglai were the 3 divine mountains that survived Dragon Count's fishing. In other words, the 2 divine mountains of Daiyu and Yuanjiao that fell into the ruins of End could also produce the immortal medicine. Fan Wu Jia's thoughts flashed like lightning. There were several types of immortal medicine. Within the ruins of Kunlun alone, there were several types of immortal medicine. Some were like springs, some were like jade, some were like trees, and some were like grass and vines. Among them, the Langxian tree was one of the immortal medicine that was recorded in the books. Its fruits were like jade and pearls. Therefore, when Fan Wu Jia saw it for the second time and Yuan Yu's reminder, he immediately thought of this rumor. The key was that the Langxian tree might really exist on the Daiyu Divine Mountain. Before Fan Wu Jia escaped, he looked at the depths of the Divine Mountain from afar. He saw that in the depths of the celestial ground, the soil was bathed in immortal light and shone with the undying divinity of gold. The rocks were like fine jade and were truly extraordinary. The platform is made of gold and jade, and the birds and beasts on it are all pure silk. The Langshan tree is full of life, and the flowers and fruits have a taste. Those who eat it will not age and will not die. Fan Wu Jia recited the records of the 2 divine mountains that fell into the ruins of End in a low voice. Then he turned around and fled without any hesitation. In the distance, an old monster with messy hair and a dirty face grabbed the immortal medicine, the Langshan fruit. He laughed wildly and rushed toward the celestial ground, trying to use the great terror there to shake off his pursuers. But just as he was approaching the edge of the divine mountain, a white shadow flashed by, and the old monster with immortal medicine disappeared without a trace. Only then did everyone calm down. The mummy glanced at the depths of the divine mountain with fear. The 9-headed hunchback old man whispered to the old monster beside him, "Did you see that white shadow clearly? It looks like a white bat." The old monster replied in a low voice. It was impossible to tell that the 2 of them had fought to the death and turned against each other. "I'm afraid it's a creature from the depths of the divine mountain. It was blown out by the northwest wind." The northwest wind this time is really strange. Not only did it blow out the immortal medicine, but it also blew out a mystical white bat. The platform is made of gold and jade, and the birds and beasts on it are all pure silk. The 9-headed hunchback old man whispered, "It's an albino creature from the depths of the divine mountain. I've seen a white python. It can turn the sky and earth upside down. It can stretch out its tail and stir up the blood sea. I've also seen an albino creature. It was a white bull, and on its back was the shadow of a young Taoist. When I saw it, I almost knelt down." An extremely old monster also whispered, "That could be the immortal shadow left behind by a grand heavenly lord." "I've also seen a white chelan at the edge of the divine mountain. Did any of you see a white deer?" Everyone began to discuss. It seemed that no one noticed the disappearance of the 2 newcomers, but the mummy, the 9-headed hunchback old man, and a few other evil-looking old monsters all had a trace of cunning in their eyes. They had a tacit understanding to keep this secret. Chapter 1255. At the edge of the divine mountain and the celestial land, Fan Wu Jia stealthily crept to the bottom of a black cliff. The black cliff stood straight like a razor blade, and on the gloomy cliff there were a few dead trees. Their twisted branches were like giant pythons bearing their fangs and brandishing their claws, giving off an evil vibe. It was completely different from the sacred, golden pure land in the depths of the divine mountain and the celestial land. A white crow that was filled with an aura of death flapped its wings on a dead cypress that poked out of the black cliff, letting out a piercing cry that was filled with sorrow. However, Fan Wu Jia would rather stay near this strange black mountain than take a step into the golden pure land. He looked around suspiciously for a long time, as if he was looking for a trace of someone. Fan Wu Jia used the cosmic light true water to lock onto the aura that had been here for countless years, searching for the faintly discernible aura that he was looking for. Soon, Fan Wu Jia's eyes locked onto a white crow that was circling in the sky not long ago. The white crow retracted its wings and landed on a cypress at the edge of the black mountain. Fan Wu Jia followed the white crow's flight path, and his eyes fell on the cypress. A white crow looked at him with an innocent expression on its face. Fan Wu Jia laughed coldly. "What a fat and tender crow. It makes me want to eat it. I'll cut down the cypress you're sitting on and use it as firewood to make a roast crow." As soon as he finished, he made a move to sprinkle the cosmic light true water. The white crow on the tree quickly shouted, "Fanboy, how dare you attack a white crow? Don't you know that the albino creatures in the depths of the divine mountain and the celestial land are very strange and cannot be provoked?" The voice that came out of its mouth was that of Taoist Yuanyu. Then the white crow's feathers expanded, and as its bones and muscles changed shape, its feathers gradually faded, and it turned into the familiar wretched appearance of Taoist Yuan Yu. Old Taoist Yuan Yu winked at Fan Wujie and said with a smile, "Little Fan, we are indeed fated to meet. The last time we were at the border of the ultimate ruins, I was hiding left and right, and I still met you by chance. This time, I can't escape your eyes, even though I've changed so many ways." At this point, Fan Wujie felt a little guilty. After all, he had lured the pursuers of the dragon clan of the Four Seas to find old Taoist Yuan Yu and used that opportunity to force him into the depths of the bottomless ruins. Now that he thought about it, he was the one in the wrong. Old Taoist Yuan Yu was using this matter to stab him. However, Fan Wujie's face had long been trained to be thick. His face did not turn red, and his heart did not jump as he shouted, "Don't change the subject! Where is the thing? What is it?" Old Taoist Yuan Yu prepared to play dumb. Without saying a word, Fan Wujie unleashed the time light true water and time splendor mortal dust sand, unleashing a formless and colorless divine ray. Hastily, Yuan Yu stopped him and said, "Stop, stop, stop. I've kept everything. Why can't you take a joke?" Fan Wujie was so angry that he shouted, "You call this a joke? You're trying to steal my stuff. A fruit of the tree of immortality can't be split in half." Old Taoist Yuan Yu said patiently, "I don't think you're willing to split the divine herb of immortality in half. That's a waste. After the chaos was broken, the divine herb of immortality became a rare treasure. Only a complete divine herb of immortality can make a person immortal. The divine herb of immortality in this world, the immortal peaches of Jasper Lake, disappeared after the fall of the heaven. The ginseng fruit tree disappeared with the great deity Jinyuan. The realm sea is hard to find. The emperor herb of Wu Mountain is hard to find. The hanging garden of Kunlun is nowhere to be found. And the 3 islands of Penglai are far away. The 2 divine mountains of Daiyu and Yuanjiao that sank into the bottomless ruins are probably the only celestial lands that can produce the divine herb of immortality. Back then, the chaos had 10 continents in the sea. Among them, Penglai, Fang, Hu, Yingzhou, and the 3 immortal islands were Zhu continent, Yuan continent, and Yingzhou continent. But other than that, there were 7 continents: Ju, Ku, Feng, Lin, Yan, Chong, Lu, Shang, and Xian, as well as the 3 islands of Vast Sea, Fusang, and Fangzhong. These are the 3 islands and 10 continents. After the chaos was broken, it was hard to find them again, and perhaps they have long been destroyed. Now that the divine mountains and celestial lands have fallen into the bottomless ruins, there may be shocking secrets and dangers hidden in them, and those old monsters who mistakenly entered the blood sea have waited for so many years. But not a single divine herb of immortality has been blown out of the celestial lands. Therefore, the divine herb of immortality in our hands may be the only one in the universe. Fan Wujie snorted coldly and said, "So, are you advising me to rob it as soon as possible?" "I'm talking about the preciousness of this divine herb of immortality. In the universe, there are countless old monsters who would do anything for it. But compared to the opportunity to become Dara, it is nothing. Dara is immortal who lives as long as the heavens, free from disasters and tribulations, and immortal. Once he becomes Dara, the divine herb of immortality is meaningless. Therefore, before the primordial world was broken, the divine herb of immortality was not something rare. It was just a snack for Dara. Back when the Emperor Heaven ruled the world, he often rewarded his ministers with the divine herb of immortality. It was clear that in Dara's eyes, it was not something precious. It was only after the primordial world was broken that Dara's whereabouts became elusive, and the Tao monarchs of the world had nowhere else to go, that they searched for the divine herb of immortality, something that defied the natural order of nature and sought immortality. Little Fan, you did not hesitate to frame me and enter the bottomless ruins. I don't think it's as simple as being tired of living." Yuan Yu raised his head and stared at Fan Wujie. Fan Wujie remained silent, but Yuan Yu continued, 10,000 years ago, I saw you break the chaotic primal stone with my own eyes, and you found the mysterious golden fragment left behind by the chaos fiend god. Only I know that in the Tao of time, among the Tao monarchs of the world, no one could be your match. In the universe, what else is worth you coming back to the bottomless ruins? Only the Tao of Dara. This old Taoist has not achieved much in this life, and I only have some understanding of the bottomless ruins. Therefore, I also know of a legend, the legend of Dara Heaven. Fan Wu Jie said calmly, "Old Taoist, you are too humble. If Tao monarchs are nothing, then there is no great achievement in this world." "What great achievement is Tao monarchs?" Yuan Yu said resolutely and decisively. His attitude was so firm that even Fan Wu Jie was a little shocked. Fan Wu Jie began to seriously size up this wretched old Taoist, as though this was the first time he had met him. Yuan Yu still had that shifty-eyed look on his face. Maybe it was because he had been wretched for too long. His back was slightly bent, just like a little old man. But at this moment, Yuan Yu's back was straight, and his entire body was emitting an awe-inspiring aura that would not waver in the face of millions of enemies. Fan Wu Jie could feel the determination and indomitable will in his heart, and suddenly, Fan Wu Jie felt that he might have underestimated this old Taoist. He had always thought that Yuan Yu had hidden himself very deeply, but he did not think that Yuan Yu had an indomitable will to seek the Tao. But now it seemed that he had misjudged Bufang. Below the grand, heavenly immortal, Yuan Yu's tone was mixed with reluctance, the hope that he had painstakingly pursued, and the dejection that he had failed to obtain. At this moment, Yuan Yu was no longer alone. He had cast himself into the darkness before attaining the grand, heavenly, immortal realm, searching for the subtle emotion of a miracle. He vividly portrayed a person who was once high-spirited, but gradually calmed down under the tempering of time. He once had dreams and hope, but became mediocre and worldly in the struggle of bewilderment. He was an old fox who had been soaked in time. For tens of millions of years, he laughed and scolded, and he was old and frivolous. But in his old age, when he was faced with the last glimmer of hope, he burned everything he had, and he was even willing to give up immortality just to seek the Tao. At this moment, he seemed to have really fallen into the role he'd played, and it was even to the extent that he faintly sensed that the life and years he'd lived before he'd attained the golden immortal realm actually couldn't compare to the life he'd lived through countless years of time. Only then did Yuan Yu understand why some Dara who had attained Tao without tribulations would always reincarnate and relive the experience of attaining the Tao, and they would even torture themselves to polish the sincere feelings they had in the past. Even if it was a player who had invested enough sincere feelings into a game and had given up his long life, the game would no longer be as simple as a game to him. It would become a part of his life. In the end, you are still an ant. Fan Wu Jie's emotions were complicated, and he muttered the words softly. "I am too immersed in the role." Yuan Yu secretly used his sleeve to wipe away the tears at the corner of his eyes, and he complained in his heart, "In these hundreds of Yuan Hui, when have I ever bitterly sought the Tao of Dara? I have always been one. F***CK. I am so immersed in the role that I have forgotten that I am a Dara." Yuan Yu laughed and scolded angrily. He was old and frivolous, and he was not stingy. What did this have to do with him sinking into despair for countless years and wearing away his will? This was his true nature. Could it be that he had become a pimp because he could not find the Tao of Dara and had no choice but to sink into it? It was because he was enjoying it. Dara had no calamities or tribulations, and it had such a long time, who didn't have a few hobbies, even if they were perverted. That was normal, right? Why did he create the identity of the maiden sect master and hang around with young Tao lords all day long, deceiving newcomers who had just arrived at the ruins of End? Could it be because he wanted to be a better spy, to be more professional? Of course, it was because of his hobbies and fun. Yuan Yu adjusted his mental state, and he was no longer in the state of being one with the play. Instead, his heart was detached from the world, and he understood his identity as Celestial Lord Yuanyu, Dara. Yet he maintained a wholehearted devotion, and his feelings seemed more sincere, but his rationality was detached from the world. He had an epiphany in his acting skills. He had transcended the realm of being one with the play, and he had reached the realm where his heart was outside of the play, and his heart was in the play. The old actor had finally gained some oil, and he was officially promoted to the Primeval Best Actor Award. With his back facing Fan Wujia, he said with his hands behind his back, "As long as you make a vow and promise to help me find the land of Dara, and when I use Dara to prove my Tao in the future, this elixir of immortality will be yours." Fan Wu Jie shook his head and said, "I can help you find the land of Dara, but after I find the land of Dara, I will also have the chance to prove my Tao in Dara, so I can't help you with all my strength. Although the elixir of immortality is good, it cannot be compared to the chance to prove my Tao in Dara. Just do your best. I don't need you to give up your Dara Tao karma to help me." Yuan Yu said lightly, "Also, to you, the elixir of immortality is another part of the foundation of Dara that gives you a greater chance of success. You walk the path of Tao Seed, and the innate time-light Tao Seed originally had the chance to fuse with the Tao, but it will take a very long time. But with the elixir of immortality, you can wait." Fan Wu Jie looked conflicted, and at this time, Yuan Yu poured a strong medicine into his mouth and said, "Do you still think that no one knows what you are plotting? Let me tell you the truth. I am the current sect master of the Beauty Maiden sect, and you trapped me in the ruins of End, but you don't know that I did it on purpose. Even falling into the blood sea of perilous lands was intentional. The third son of the Fan clan betrayed you long ago. Now the entire demon clan is following you, waiting for you to find the ruins of End, the heaven of Dara, and then rush up to take advantage of it." Fan Wu Jie was silent, and he said in a low voice, "I know." Fan Wu Jie said coldly, "Back then when I opened the stone and found the golden shard of the chaotic era, a group of people jumped out to rob me, and each of them was a big shot of the demon clan. Even if there are many strong warriors in the netherworld shard, how could it be so fast? Although they hid their identities, they can fool others, but not me. I can clearly see from the traces of cosmic light on their bodies that when I was gambling on the stone, they were all cheering and provoking me. The old demon who hit me with a stick was the one who said that I was the young Tao lord of the Fan clan, the one who said that my talent was heaven-defying and not inferior to the descendants of innate life forms. And that old monster who said that he was old, you have no idea how lively he was when he hit me. The one who looked shocked and shouted that he was the Nan Mingli fire, and then used the fire of the 9 hells to cover my face, almost disfiguring me and burned me to the point where there was no way to go. I remember all of this," Fan Wu Jie said with a twisted expression. "At that time, I felt that something was off, but I didn't know what all of you were trying to do. It wasn't until those 3 ancestors of mine tricked me into searching for the origin immortal lands. They repeatedly advised me against it, while sending the clues to the origin immortal lands to me. Do you think I'm an idiot? Although they were very clean, relying on coincidences, and even killed many people, so that no one could find anything. But the most difficult trace to erase in the world is time." Fan Wu Jie said in a low voice, "You have exposed your biggest secret. How can you win my trust? How can I trust someone who schemed against me? My biggest secret." Hee. Not only was Yuan Yu not nervous, he even wanted to laugh. "Young man, do you think you have seen through everything? In fact, you have not even touched the edge. You know that the devil cult is scheming against you, that your 3 ancestors are playing tricks, and at most you know about Fa Jing and the others, but there is no way you know about Taoist Master Ziyang. In the realm of Tao Lord, you can't see the whole picture, let alone the faint traces of Dara behind it. I have already found a few Dara sneaky. The water in this game is deep. There's also the Nether River Patriarch who's plotting something, the great heavenly lord of numinous treasure who's secretly making a move, the Rahu Patriarch who's being used, and the other great divines who are curious about this. So you see the level of Tao, Lord, but you can't see Dara behind it. I see Dara behind it, but I can't guess the great medium's moves. What is Ancestor River Styx thinking? Is it related to Ro and the 4 fairies slaying swords? What role is Master Lingbao playing here? What identity am I involved in this? The ultimate, what other secrets are hidden in it? On the surface, Yuan Yu seemed to be very sincere as he replied, "The elixir of immortality is the greatest sincerity. You may know something, but you still don't understand the horror behind it. Our devil cult is only one of the parties. Mystic Door and Buddhism are involved. I am afraid that Master Fa Jing has already entered the Blood Sea calamity. He has a primordial spirit treasure in his hand, and the people of Mystic Door are hiding very deeply. Even if we plot against Buddhism and devil cult, when we come to the land of Dara, it is not surprising that they suddenly jump out to take the peaches. And the people of devil cult are easier to deal with me as a spy. So when I saw the elixir of immortality, I realized that this is the only chance for us to reconcile and gain each other's trust. Only by working together can we have a chance to prove our Tao in Dara." Fan Wu Jie said calmly, "So you decisively gave up the elixir of immortality to win my trust, and at the same time revealed my identity so that there would be no more pain between us. At the same time, you proved to me that the benefits you seek must be higher than the elixir of immortality. Then only Dara. You proved that you only seek Dara. At this time, we have a foundation of common interests, because you proved that you no longer represent the devil cult, you only represent yourself. In this way, the two of us who are alone have the possibility of working together." Although Fan Wujia had guessed Yuan Yu's thoughts, he did not. He was still shocked by Yuan Yu's decisiveness and decisiveness. He was willing to give up the hope of immortality in order to fight for the biggest chance to prove his Tao in Dara. The old Taoist, who looked wretched on the surface, had a heart of Tao of steel inside. At this time, Fan Wujia thought of the charming celestial being of the beauty sect and remembered the words, "Bring him back!" Fan Wu Jie sighed inwardly. He wondered if this goddess had seen through the determination and ruthlessness hidden beneath the surface of her lover's unscrupulous appearance. "All right, I promise you." Fan Wu Jie stretched out his hand and said, "Let's form an alliance." Old Taoist Yuan Yu high-fived him and revealed a familiar wretched smile. Fan Wu Jie wiped his hands and said, "Where is the elixir of immortality?" Yuan Yu laughed, showing his yellow teeth. Then, under Fan Wu Jie's burning gaze, he scratched his throat. "Blarg!" Seeing the old Taoist wipe the shiny jade bead that was full of honey juice with his dirty sleeve, Fan Wu Jie really had the urge to turn hostile. At least he wanted to leave a size 49 shoe print on that old man's wretched face. But when he thought about the old Taoist's unfathomable divine art of transformation and the overall situation of working together, he resisted the urge. "Like hell, I'll believe you." Fan Wu Jie looked at the sky speechlessly and made up his mind to swallow the jade bead like the old Taoist. "Old Taoist Yuan," you said from the side, "that's right. I know that the elixir of immortality is very difficult to refine, and it won't be easily digested even if you swallow it. Instead, it's the best way to protect it. If anyone wants to snatch the elixir of immortality, they'll have to kill you for it if you don't hand it over willingly." "Shut up." Fan Wu Jie raised his head and scolded in a muffled voice. Fan Wu Jie stood side by side with old Taoist Yuan Yu. He asked in a low voice, "Since you dragged me into the Blood Sea on purpose, we've fallen out with those old monsters again. Now that the mummy is no longer leading the way, you should know how to escape from here, right? Say something. Weren't you the one who told me to shut up?" Yuan Yu said indignantly, "Speak human language. There's a shortcut at the bottom of the eye of the Blood Sea that leads to the returning ruins. We can escape from there." Chapter 1256. The shortcut you mentioned is at the bottom of the Blood Sea? Fan Wu Jia poked his head out and took a glance at the blood ocean that was rolling with waves of blood, squinted his eyes, and asked, "So, how are we going to get down there? Don't tell me we're going to jump down. I don't know either." Yuan Yu stroked his short goatee and mumbled, "That's what he told me." Him. Fan Wu Jia was furious when he heard that Yuan Yu had also heard it from someone else. "So you heard it from someone else too. You dare to lead me to a dead end after hearing some unreliable information. That is to say, other than the Blood Sea, there might be a shortcut that leads deeper into the ultimate. What else do you know?" "Shut up. I've almost figured it out." Yuan Yu muttered to himself as he calculated with his fingers, observing the terrain of the Divine Mountain and reviewing the terrain he had seen along the way. "Old Taoist, you don't look like such an unreliable person." Fan Wu Jia continued to ramble on. "Just who is it that spoke to you so casually, and you actually believed it so completely? Are you so sure that his words are reliable? Even if he is, no one has ever left the Blood Sea Calamity's eyes. So how can his information be reliable?" Fan Wu Jia was a little dejected. "You, Sai, you don't know who he is," Yuan Yu said in a distant tone. Fan Wu Jia looked up and said, "Tell me who he is." That great immortal could point out a way that countless old monsters trapped here couldn't find even after countless years of tribulations? "Ancestor River Styx," Yuan Yu said faintly. Fan Wu Jia was speechless. His voice was dry as he looked at Yuan Yu with a strange look in his eyes. "You're saying that the slaughtering demon ancestor personally came to you in your dreams and told you that there is a way out of the Blood Sea Calamity's eyes?" Yuan Yu looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot and said, "I have to walk 8 lifetimes to be able to dream of the slaughtering demon ancestor. Do I look like someone whose 18 generations of ancestors were buried in the forbidden land of desolation? The Blood Sea Calamity of the Shura clan is indeed terrifying. No one has ever escaped from it. It was originally the forbidden land where the slaughtering demon ancestor killed the great Azura King Poya. Later, it became a land of destruction in the ultimate. Finally, it was used as a prison by the Shamoriai king to imprison the demons of destruction and the Shura clan's traitors. But this is the only place where we can get rid of the forces behind you who are coveting the land of Dara. Otherwise, how are we going to fight against behemoths like the Mystic Sect, Buddhist Sect, and Demon Sect?" Yuan Yu sneered and said, "If you want to escape from their control, you have to play the most unexpected move. Is there anything more unexpected than falling into a hopeless situation? Only in such a dangerous place can they be caught off guard and unprepared, giving us a chance to fish in troubled waters. Even if something goes wrong, aren't they still responsible for it? In order to find the land of Dara, won't they have to get us out of here? Furthermore, others can escape from this Blood Sea prison, but it might not be able to imprison me," Yuan Yu said smugly. Fan Wu Jia lowered his head and pondered. The Blood Sea impasse trapped Dara to death. How are we going to escape? Unless I have the blueprint of this prison. Yuan Yu slapped his thigh and said in high spirits, "In the demonic Tao, there was once a powerful sect, the Blood Sea Demon Sect. It is said that it is the direct descendant of the Blood Sea Orthodoxy and later merged with the great Azura demon cult. It is said that their fundamental orthodoxy is the massacre demon ancestors' Blood Sea scripture. When I was young, I accidentally obtained a fragment of the Blood Sea scripture. There was only one complete divine power in it. It was an imitation of the primordial corroding blood sea in the ultimate. It also included the internal model of the Blood Sea Calamity Eye. That divine power could summon a projection of the Blood Sea Calamity Eye's huge whirlpool and use the destructive calamity power to torture the enemy to death. Do you know what the only flaw of this ability is?" Taoist Yuan Yu asked with a smug smile. "At the bottom of the eye of the sea." Fan Wu Jia knew what he was going to say. This is the divine art that the massacring demon patriarch personally passed down. It naturally contains the secrets and structure of the Blood Sea calamity that the massacring demon patriarch knows. Of course, there is no one in this world who knows this place better than the massacred demon ancestor, who created this Blood Sea, and this Blood Sea is his clone. Of course, his words are very reliable. So as long as we can find a way to break this technique, we can escape this place. Fan Wu Jie said excitedly, "No wonder you dared to come down here. So you have the blueprint left by the designer of this place. Then, what about the technique? Take it out and let us study it. With our wisdom combined, can't we find a way out?" "I gave you the blueprint a long time ago," Yuan Yu said with a smile, as if everything was under his control. Fan Wu Jie was slightly surprised, and he touched his belly. Yuan Yu shook his head and said, "It is not the immortal divine medicine. Don't you think the demon god tattoo on your body is a little too lifelike? Don't you find it strange that the great Tao of destruction has worn away all the bits and pieces on your body? Why is there still one tattoo that has not changed at all?" Fan Wu Jie took off his outer robe, and the tattoo of an 8-armed, angry demon god was revealed. Now that he looked closely, he could indeed see that the demon god was extraordinary and strange. Its blood-red eyes were flowing with extremely evil, demonic nature, and its 8 arms were waving as if they were going to destroy everything. The demon god's rage, the ferociousness of its red face, and the aura of great destruction and calamity. There was indeed a strange, demonic nature to it. All the other tattoos on his body were blurred, and even the divine characters and dragon chapters on them could not be seen clearly. However, this demon god was the only one who did not fade or become blurry under the destruction of the Blood Sea tribulation eye. Instead, it became clearer and more powerful. "But this is my own tattoo," Fan Wu Jie said in shock. Yuan Yu said proudly, "If you want to hide something, what could be better than hiding it in someone else's mind? I was afraid that someone could use a strange divine ability to search my memory and see through my big plan. So I cut away the true meaning of the technique in my memory and hid it in your mind. That way, the true meaning would secretly influence your mind and draw it out through your hand." How could the divine ability created by the demon ancestor be destroyed so easily? Things created at their level, whether they are tangible or intangible, have an indestructible essence. Even if you destroy its carrier, it can still subtly duplicate itself. The divine abilities of the devil path are passed down from generation to generation because of the demon ancestors' methods. Have you ever heard of some righteous sects annihilating some demonic sects and burning the scriptures of demonic sects? Then, countless years later, there will be a genius in that sect who, through the remaining spoils of war from that battle, suddenly comprehended some kind of inspiration and was infected by the demonic nature. Then he went crazy and created some kind of strange and terrifying magical power, betrayed the sect, and became a demonic giant? This was also the first time Fan Wu Jie had heard of such a story. At this time, he connected it to the story of the rise of the Fan clan's 3 ancestors. In the past, in the Brahma Heaven realm, the Righteous Path clans destroyed the last Evil Path sect that opposed them. The Blood Diagram sect, which had a long history, was at peace. The Brahma Heaven realm was filled with righteous people, and the Righteous Path flourished for a time. The righteous sects entered an unprecedented era of glory. At that time, the Brahma Heaven realm established a 9-grade system. Every 1,000 years, the Tao monarchs of the clans would determine the number of people who could become immortals based on the resources and spiritual energy of the Brahma Heaven realm. They would select the most talented and outstanding disciples from the poor families and nurture them. Those who were not included in the system were illegal cultivators. They were all idiots who stole the fortune of heaven and earth and would be killed by the heavenly tribulation. Every year, among the 3 great clans, the 9 great immortal officials would tour the clans and hold banquets, competitions, and secret explorations to evaluate the cultivation aptitude of the disciples. At that time, the clans created many cultivation secret realms. Every clan had all kinds of competitions, and the whole Brahma Heaven realm had all kinds of rankings. Among the younger generation, there were all kinds of Tao gatherings, tea parties, immortal banquets, and arenas. The whole world's cultivation resources were locked in all kinds of secret realms. One had to participate in this social circle and evaluation system to obtain cultivation resources and opportunities. The disciples of the clans had to learn to be famous from a young age and compete with other outstanding disciples of the clans. In the beginning, they did cultivate many outstanding disciples of the clans, but in the end, the system gradually deteriorated. In the beginning, the interests of the poor were sacrificed, and then it was the turn of the small clans. In the end, even the non-direct descendants of the three great clans were suppressed, and the whole cultivation environment became stinky. The Fan clan's third ancestor was originally a disciple of the outer branch. In the clan's minor competition, because of his talent and extraordinary bone structure, he was hated by the direct descendants of the main branch. In the end, he was plotted against on the arena, and his bone structure was broken. His immortal rank dropped from the upper 5th grade to the lower 9th grade. But the Fan clan's third ancestor persevered and endured all kinds of suppression and revenge. After being demoted to a slave, he still cultivated hard. In the end, in the family's abandoned dump, he found the spoils of war from annihilating the Blood Chart sect, a broken iron ring. After that, the Fan clan's third ancestor sacrificed himself to the devil. He sacrificed the entire branch and took over the body of a noble youth of the Fan clan. He burned, killed, robbed, and was ruthless. He secretly gathered the small clans and geniuses of the poor who were left behind in the Brahma Heaven realm and rebuilt the Blood Chart demon sect. In the end, he caused a major event. He sacrificed a world that the Brahma Heaven realm was preparing to swallow, created a destructive tribulation, and triggered the great Tao of the ruins of End. He destroyed the 9-grade immortal rank system that had lasted for millions of years in the Brahma Heaven realm and became a Tao lord. It could be said that he was the Fan clan's third ancestor and was also the son of luck. Fan Wu Jie originally thought that it was his third ancestor's luck that was extraordinary, and the Blood Chart demon sect was just a stepping stone for the third ancestor. Now that he thought about it, it was clearly because the Blood Chart demon sect's luck was not extinguished and the fundamental cultivation method was not destroyed. The Brahma Heaven realm continued to develop, and it had already provided a rich soil for the demonic path. At that time, the conflict had clearly accumulated like a mountain, and it was only missing a match. And the fundamental cultivation method of the Blood Chart demon sect was that match. Even if there was no Fan clan's third ancestor, there would still be the Wang clan's first ancestor and the Xia clan's second ancestor. Fan Wu Jie looked down at his arm and half of his shoulder that had 8 arms stretched out and danced. He felt the deep demonic nature of the tattoo. He was secretly vigilant. What true meaning of the demon ancestor? It could have been drawn on anyone. Since it was so important, why didn't the wretched old Taoist draw it on himself? There must be something fishy. Fan Wu Jie did not believe that such a strange thing lying on his body would not affect him at all. Yes, the true meaning left behind by the demon ancestor was not destroyed, and it would always be obtained by the later generations. Then, with a moment of great luck, they would revive the demonic path sect. But why did all those geniuses who had comprehended the true meaning of the demonic path fall into the demonic path? That old bastard wanted to plot against me and lure me into the demonic path. Fan Wu Jie glanced at Yuan Yu. Yuan Yu was just short of whistling to prove that he did not know anything. The immortal herb that flew out of nowhere from the depths of the sacred mountain. A few years ago, I accidentally found a remnant of the Blood Sea scripture from a secret dual cultivation manual. Let me think, what other opportunities do I have? This time, I have to throw them all to this fated person. After this, there will be no more opportunities. Ancestor, don't throw things at me anymore. Now, when I see the opportunities you give out, my liver trembles. I don't dare to throw them away, and I don't dare to take them away. I can only go around and give them to the righteous path's talents and fated people." Yuan Yu knew this was the massacred demon ancestor urging him to work hard. If the demonic path wanted to develop and become strong, other than having to produce their own blood, they also had to go to the mystic door and poach people from the Buddhist path. Usually, the ones they poached were the best. But as a spy in the demonic path, Yuan Yu's heart was in the mystic door. How could he do that? So, when River Styx thought of him, he would send some opportunities to him, urging him to find more clients. If he did not find a fated person to give it to, then he would form a fated relationship with River Styx. In any case, Yuan Yu did not want to know what would happen if he formed a fated relationship with River Styx. Ever since he was given an opportunity by River Styx once, when he encountered such a situation, he would often give it away at the first moment. Saving his life was more important. This time, the northwest wind of the sacred mountain blew out a fruit of the immortal tree when they arrived. No matter how he looked at it, it was strange. Of course, Yuan Yu had to make the first move and give it to the person next to him, who was supposed to be the scapegoat. This time, it was obvious that Fan Wujie was the center of this setup. If Yuan Yu did not act earlier, he would also be in the eyes of the tribulation. When the time came, who knew how big of a scapegoat he would have to bear? It's yours, it's all yours. Yuan Yu's eyes seemed to inadvertently sweep over Fan Wujie, who was studying his tattoo. Fan Wujie was very shocked. He looked up at Yuan Yu and said, "This is the only weakness, you said, the one that exists at the bottom of the blood sea." "Yes." Yuan Yu slightly touched the 8-armed demon god on Fan Wujie's right arm, and the demon god turned into a bloody eye, condensing the tribulation power of destruction. Yuan Yu reached out and gently touched the bottom of the eye of the blood sea, the sharp horn at the bottom of the blood-colored vortex. The entire eye of the blood sea was instantly thrown into chaos. The tribulation power of destruction clashed everywhere, and the phantom quickly collapsed. Fan Wujie opened his right palm and slapped it. The 8-armed demon god on his right arm roared, and his entire right arm was wrapped in a bloody storm vortex. Yuan Yu was shocked, and he screamed, "Fan boy, are you trying to kill me?" The blood-colored vortex attracted the tribulation power of destruction in the eye, causing the vortex on Fan Wujie's right arm to expand hundreds of times, lifting all the dead trees and strange rocks on the black cliff. The black cliff trembled strangely, and it collided with the blood-colored vortex. The strange Tao patterns that appeared on the cliff shattered the entire blood-colored whirlpool. However, Fan Wujie and Yuan Yu could sense that this was a power that was billions of times stronger than the blood vortex. From the beginning to the end, the black cliff on the outskirts of the Divine Mountain had not been able to destroy the structure of the blood vortex. Fan Wujie sneered and said, "Why don't you say that the only weakness of this divine ability is that it can only be grasped by completely withstanding its power? The weakness at the bottom of the blood sea is right under the most destructive vortex of the blood sea tribulation eye. If you want to go down there, you have to endure the full power of the blood sea tribulation eye. Didn't you say that this divine ability is unbreakable?" Fan Wujie shouted angrily and flew into the air, preparing to beat up this unreliable old Taoist. Yuan Yu covered his head and scurried away. He said anxiously, "Wait, even if we can't break this divine ability, it doesn't mean that no one else can. Don't forget, the blood sea tribulation eye's blueprint is no different from the real thing." Fan Wujie snorted coldly and said, "I know that you're going to tell me that King Poya was killed by this divine ability of the slaughtered demon ancestor. Even though he was already dead and his body was suppressed here, he must have found a way to break this divine ability before he died. That was why he grabbed the fragment of Dai Yu Divine Mountain from the bottom of the blood sea and used his right hand to reach out of the blood sea to create a pure land for his old subordinates. So the mummy and the others do know how to escape from this place, and we know part of their escape plan. We know that they are going to escape from the bottom of the Blood Sea, but what we don't know is how to get to the bottom of the Blood Sea. Naturally, someone has already figured it out for us. Fan Wu Jie said coolly, I just want you to know that if you keep me in suspense, I'll turn against you. Yuan Yu calculated quickly and said, I'm not selling it. I'm not going to keep you in suspense anymore. King Poya wanted to save his old subordinates, so he naturally had to prepare a safe escape route for them. But he didn't have the time to tell them too much, because he couldn't be sure what he could say and what he couldn't. In the bottomless ruins, it's normal to die if you know too much, and it'll be a very strange death. So he can't tell his old subordinates what he knows, and can only hint at some things. For example, he can't tell his old subordinates the structure of the Blood Sea Eye of Destruction, but he can create a miniature blood sea in his palm and replicate its structure. He can't protect his old subordinates to the bottom of the Blood Sea Eye, but he can use his own body to create a safe passage to the bottom of the sea. King Poya stepped on the bottom of the Blood Sea, raised his right hand high, and left the Blood Sea. His body is the safest bridge to the bottom of the Blood Sea, Yuan Yu said. So, as long as we can find the passage that leads to King Poya's body, we can leave the Blood Sea through his feet. Then this passage is... Fan Wu Jie turned to look at the Blood Sea in his palm outside the black cliff. Yuan Yu nodded and said, It's at the bottom of this Blood Sea. This Blood Sea is so calm. And the reason I haven't figured out King Poya's plan is because I haven't connected this Blood Sea in my palm with the Blood Sea outside. I didn't expect this Blood Sea Eye to be a blueprint of the Blood Sea Eye, and it's a model that's more intuitive than the one I have. The reason this Blood Sea Eye hasn't formed into a whirlpool must be because someone has blocked the Blood Sea Eye. When the time comes, the Blood Sea Eye will turn into a giant whirlpool, and all we have to do is control the divine turtle to carry the divine mountain into the whirlpool, and we'll be able to break through the Blood Sea Eye and enter King Poya's blood vessel. King Poya's blood vessel is a giant underground blood river, and the divine turtle will swim to the bottom of King Poya's feet, where the destructive tribulation power in the Blood Sea Calamity Eye is the weakest. With Daiyu Divine Mountain as the outer shell, we'll be able to resist the final destructive tribulation power and escape from here. The plan is perfect. Fan Wu Jie clapped his hands and praised, as expected of the great Azura King, the subordinate of Demon Ancestor of Destruction. Before he died, he thought of using his body to create an escape route to protect the last of his people and old subordinates. Not only does King Poya have a power so strong that not even the destructive tribulation power can destroy him, he also has the wisdom to see life and death as normal. The most admirable thing about him is his heart to protect his people. No wonder his old subordinates didn't complain when they were trapped in this place and tortured for so many eons. They remained loyal to him. Such noble sentiments. Fan Wu Jie raised his head and said, It makes me want to kill them all even more. Yuan Yu nodded slightly and said, Judging from the loyalty King Poya and his subordinates have shown to Ancestor Ro, these Destruction Devil disciples will never give up on saving their leader, Demon Ancestor of Destruction Ro, after they get out of this place. This kind of loyalty is admirable, but this kind of ambition cannot be indulged. Kill them. Fan Wu Jie clenched his right hand and made a gesture of crushing them to death. Yuan Yu gave him a look of approval. Chapter 1257. Fan Wu Jie stood at the edge of the black cliff, facing the sea of blood. He spat out the elixir of immortality, and a beautiful jade pearl fell into his hand. Holding the jade pearl, Fan Wu Jie stared at Taoist Yuan Yu warily and said in a low voice, Are you sure you didn't miscalculate? Can this elixir of immortality really attract the giant Leviathan? Connate divine beasts like them have an indescribable and profound spiritual sense. Ordinary Tao lords and golden immortals wouldn't be able to divine the elixir of immortality. But divine beasts like them would naturally be able to sense something that is of great benefit to them. This is the heavenly Tao's compensation to these young divine beasts for their low intelligence. All living creatures have the strongest intelligence when they are young, just like what the great elder said. They are pure babies that are not tainted by the acquired world. These innate living creatures are 1,000,000 times more talented than the acquired ones like us. It's not surprising that they have such abilities. After listening to Yuan Yu's explanation, Fan Wu Jie also waited patiently. After a long time, Fan Wu Jie suddenly felt the divine turtle beneath his feet move slightly. It slowly turned its head to the east, like a tortoise stretching its neck and looking back. The divine mountain that was held up by the divine turtle also trembled slightly. Fan Wu Jie looked in the direction of the blood sea and immediately understood. The giant Leviathan was here. These Khanate beings have their own territories and will not recklessly invade each other's territories. That is why the giant Leviathan would not appear next to the divine turtle. But it can sense the endless benefits of the elixir of immortality and can no longer care so much. Although the divine turtle is stronger than the giant Leviathan, it is slow. The giant Leviathan just needs to snatch the elixir of immortality before it can react. Fan Wu Jie thought back and said with some surprise, "If the giant Leviathan can sense the benefits of the elixir of immortality in our hands, why did the divine turtle not react to the elixir on its back?" Yuan Yu said faintly, "The divine turtle's neck is very long, and it can swallow and bite very quickly. Yet it just can't touch its back. Otherwise, why do you think the mummy and the others were so confident in using the divine turtle's back as their headquarters? Do you really think that they have tamed the divine turtle? But the divine turtle has no reaction, which is illogical, so there is only one possibility. The divine turtle has already been fed the elixir of immortality." Yuan Yu's eyes lit up. "I thought the divine turtle had mistakenly entered the ultimate and was plotted by King Poye's old subordinates to lift the mountain fragments. But now it seems that this was all a plot. Someone planned for the descendants of the divine turtle to fall into the ultimate and lift the remains of the divine mountains. The divine turtle has the ability to lift the divine mountain. This was the decree of the celestial Tharch back then. It is still engraved in the primordial heavenly Tao, so this is not difficult. That's why I didn't suspect that the mummy and the others could use the divine turtles to lift the divine mountains. But now, it seems like someone wants to use the 2 sunken divine mountains to set up a trap. It's impossible for the mummy to have the elixir of immortality. Even if it did, it's impossible for it to be used on a divine turtle that isn't crucial to their plan. Only the great secret of the sinking of the Daiyu and Yuanjiao divine mountains into the ultimate back then, and the terrifying mastermind behind it or his enemy, would be so generous as to feed a divine turtle descendant an immortal herb. Fan Wu Jie was a little worried, but Yuan Yu could see it and comforted him. "Don't worry, no matter what these big shots are planning. It has nothing to do with us. Since that person fed the divine turtle with the elixir of immortality, it means that he is plotting something that will happen many years later. It will be so long that the young divine turtle cannot support it. The ultimate may be the last place in the world that is suitable for Khanate life forms to grow. Once the divine turtle reaches adulthood, it will be able to dive into the vast blood sea below. After consuming the immortal elixir, it will have an endless lifespan. When it reaches an extremely old age, it will be able to recreate the peerless might of its ancestor in the past. That may be the time when the divine mountains of Jin and Yuanjiao are born. By then, if you consume the elixir of immortality, you may be able to cultivate the Tao of time and merge with the primitive heavenly Tao to prove Dara. Such a long plan. That is Dara's game. You are just an ant. Why should you worry about it?" Yuan Yu laughed coldly. Fan Wu Jie was stabbed by his words. He said self-deprecatingly, "Searching for Dara in the depths of the ultimate is already a perilous journey. Who knows? I might even die on the way to proving my Tao. Why would I care about a setup that will take place countless years later? Why would I care? The giant Kuan is here. Yuan Yu looked up. As he spoke, the blood sea to the left of the divine turtle suddenly surged with huge waves. A Kuan that was even bigger than the giant Kuan they had seen before leaped into the air. A black wall rose in front of them. They could not see the top, the bottom, and the edge of the wall. It looked like death itself. Although Yuan Yu and Fan Wujia were shocked, their expressions remained the same. If they wanted to be shocked, they would have already been shocked. They were not ignorant country bumpkins who would be shocked at the slightest thing. Fanboy, it's all up to you now. Yuan Yu transformed into the form of an Asura. He had 5 heads and 4 arms, and his face was red with fangs. He looked ferocious. King Poya was the leader of the Poya clan of Asura. His name was Poya Ji. His full name was Poya Ri. It meant to be bound, to bind the 5 evils, and to be strong and brave. Yuan Yu opened his palm and transformed it into the hand that Poya Ji had extended out of the blood sea. Poya Ji's Asura King's hand is the same as the human's in the shape of Pangu. However, the fate of the Asura clan is different from that of the human race. Khanate life forms have lives, but no fate. They need to be calculated with the innate 8 trigrams. Emperor, she created the innate 8 trigrams and created the Tao of E. He calculated all Khanate life forms and laid the foundation for the human race. I may not be as powerful as Emperor Shi, but I can calculate your Poya Ji's secret through the Tao of E. Innate 8 trigrams, 9 palaces of Luo. Calculate Poya Ji's palm for me. Yuan Yu let out a roar. His hair was messed up, and a head of white hair hung loosely behind him. His body trembled violently, making him look like a crazed demon. Yuan Yu stood barefooted on the black cliff, walking in the 9 palaces. Although this black cliff is not located in the depths of the celestial land, it is still the location of the palace on the back of the divine turtle. The divine turtle carries the book, and the dragon horse carries the picture. The beginning of the Tao of E, the river chart, and the book of Luo. The divine turtle was born in the shape of the book of Luo. It wears 9 and has 1, 3 on the left and 7 on the right. 2 and 4 are the shoulders, 6 and 8 are the feet, and 5 is the center. Now, I am stepping on the Ken Palace, the beginning of the Yang. The sky gives birth to water, and 60% of the earth turns to the Kuan Palace in the southeast. The earth has 16 numbers. The Book of Luo has 9 palaces. 1, 3, 7, and 9 are odd numbers, also known as the Yang numbers. 2, 4, 6, and 8 are even numbers, also known as the Yin numbers. The Yang numbers are the main and represent the sky. The Yin numbers are the 4 corners and represent the earth chi. The 5 is the center and represents the earth chi. It is the ancestor of the 5 elements and represents the 4 corners. There are 5 lines and 8 hills on the palm. The root of the thumb is the gold hill. The root of the index finger is the wood hill. The root of the middle finger is the earth hill. The root of the ring finger is the sun hill. And the root of the little finger is the water hill. Opposite the gold hill is the moon hill. Between the wood hill and the gold hill is the fire hill. Opposite the fire hill, between the water hill and the moon hill, is the Ji-Du hill. It appears and disappears. There is also a hidden hill, the Ro hill, located in the hollow of the Zhonggong Mingtang's palm. It is the bottom of the blood sea under our feet. Apart from that, there are also the 5 patterns. On this palm continent, there are 5 main rivers of blood. From the bottom of the index finger to the golden obsidian hill, the river of blood surrounding the heavenly pillar of the thumb is the earth pattern. From the middle of the heavenly pillar of the thumb and the heavenly pillar of the index finger, the river of blood extending toward the heavenly hill is the human pattern. And from the bottom of the heavenly pillar of the little finger, the river of blood extending toward the heavenly pillar of the index finger is the heaven pattern. The river of blood flowing down from the top of the middle finger through the blood lake to the wrist is the sun pattern. The short line between the base of the little finger and the heaven pattern is the Yin pattern. The 9 luminaries and 8 hills are the stars. Yuan Yu pointed in all 8 directions, and a flying star rose up in each direction. 7 appeared, and 2 were hidden. After the 9 palace diagram on the divine turtle's back, they turned into the Big Dipper. The 5 lines of Blood River, the 3 talents, and Yin Yang as the river diagram. The first 6 are the same, water is in the north. The second 7 are the same, fire is in the south. The third 8 are the same, wood is in the east. The fourth 9 are the same, metal is in the west. The 50 are the same, earth is in the middle. Yuan Yu then pointed to the meridians of the Blood River. The river diagram and the Book of Luo were 2 sides of the Tao of Yi. However, Yuan Yu did not have the help of the dragon horse diagram, so the river diagram he manifested was unstable. 9 palace flying stars. Guide the North Star, the Big Dipper that the 9 luminaries and 8 hills on the palm transformed into, according to the river diagram, pointed to a mysterious place. Yuan Yu was sweating profusely, and his white hair danced wildly as if he had gone mad. How could the North Star go down the 9 palaces? The body was the North Star, and used it in the Big Dipper. The Big Dipper was the carriage of the North Star Emperor. As the Big Dipper rotated around the North Star, it was the carriage of the North Star Emperor. If one followed the 8 palaces of the Big Dipper, one could deduce the time sequence of the 4 seasons and 8 nodes. The change of time sequence was E. Poya Ji's palm transformation into the 9 palaces flying stars pointed to the change of time sequence within the body of the innate demon god left behind by King Poya. The demon god's body was dead, but not dead. Even after death, its internal chi was still changing, following the time sequence of the returning ruins. The yin and yang chi rose and fell. The meridian 2 hours changed. If it was in the myriad heavens, Yuan Yu could still deduce the time sequence of Poya King's Dharma body using the time sequence of the myriad heavens. But in the sinkhole of ultimate, the changes in the sinkhole of ultimate were extremely secretive and impossible to calculate. Therefore, Yuan Yu could only use King Poya's palm that was exposed outside the Blood Sea and the changes in the chi on the Land of Bones. He used the river diagram and the Book of the Luo to transform into the 9 palaces, flying stars, to guide the changes in King Poya's body. This way, when he entered King Poya's Grand Luo's body, he wouldn't be trapped by the changes in King Poya's body and the various destructive tribulations. Although the Blood Sea tribulation I was extremely dangerous, as Dara who cultivated the Tao of destruction, King Poya's Dharma body was also filled with the power of tribulation of destruction. If one didn't know the changes and entered recklessly, they would encounter the remaining power of tribulation of destruction, which would be triggered by the chi dynamic in the blood vessels and meridians. It would be no better than being smashed by King Poya's destructive power. Therefore, without King Poya's cultivation technique and the pattern of the changes in his Dharma body, entering this bridge across the Blood Sea would only result in death. And these things must be in the hands of King Poya's old subordinates, and they were the most important secrets that outsiders would never be able to pry into. Moreover, there was another advantage to knowing the pattern of King Poya's chi activity, which was that he could use it to calculate the changes in the Ultimate's environment. The changes in the Ultimate's time sequence were extremely secretive. Only King Poya's Grand Luo corpse, which was hidden deep within the Ultimate, could sense the changes in the Ultimate's time sequence like a precise clock that was calibrated to the infinite eons and could be used as an astronomical instrument to calculate the time sequence. Only by calculating the time sequence of the Ultimate could one truly enter the Ultimate. It was just like how those who didn't understand the sea map could never go out to sea. The map of the Ultimate was not only about the topography. Just like the sea route, it only considered the route, not the weather and time sequence. It would already be a blessing if one could come back alive once out of 10 trips. Little fan. Yuan Yu condensed the Big Dipper and put it into his sleeve. He said, "Now is the time. Find out where the North Star is and confirmed the 9 palaces' flying star. Fan Wu-jia, who had been preparing for a long time, immediately made his move. The group of old monsters who were alerted by the giant Leviathan came to the periphery of the divine mountain and the deity ground. When they saw Fan Wu-jia and Yuan Yu, their eyes lit up. Fan Wu-jia looked at the incomparably huge Leviathan and laughed. "Today, I have the long tassel in my hand. When will I be able to restrain the Kuan Pang?" Fan Wu-jia stood under the raging waves of the Blood Sea, and the blood waves that were tens of thousands of feet high smashed down towards him. Fan Wu-jia casually threw out the cosmic light true water, and the cosmic light true water and the sands of time turned into a long ribbon. At first, it was just a colorless and shapeless ribbon in Fan Wu-jia's hand, and it looked like a ball of transparent water. But as Fan Wu-jia waved the long ribbon that was originally just fluttering around him turned into a white ribbon that blotted out the sky. The white silk revolved around Fan Wu-jia. Every time it made a full circle, it would extend outwards. Fan Wu-jia was holding the tail of the silk, which was only as wide as a piece of paper. As the long silk danced and spun, it extended endlessly. Gradually, it became hundreds of meters wide, then thousands of meters wide. It looked like an ant was dragging a tiny tail, gradually expanding, and eventually the long silk that covered the sky and covered the earth. The white silk swept up waves of blood, stirred up a sea of blood, and dyed herself red. Fan Wu-jia waved his long silk, turning the boundless sea of blood into a red silk in his hand. The blood dyed the white silk red, and the sea of blood turned into a red silk. It swept up an endless amount of blood, turning the boundless amount of blood that the giant Kuan had lifted into the air into a red silk. The body that was originally supporting the giant Kuan and bearing its unparalleled strength, the most filthy blood that it had borrowed power from, had now become the red silk that was binding it. The red silk tied up an incomparably huge Kuan. No matter how the Kuan shook its head and waved its tail, no matter how hard it struggled, it remained motionless. As far as the eye could see, the boundless blood sea had turned into red silk. At this moment, even the waves of the blood sea had become the undulations of the red silk. As far as the eyes could see, everywhere was red silk, and everywhere was the Kuan Pang being restrained. Everyone was petrified, looking at this shocking scene in disbelief. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment, causing everyone to forget to breathe. The extremely tiny Fan Wu-jia waved the red ribbon that had grown from small to large, and in the end, it swept through the entire sea of blood, binding the incomparably huge Kuan fish. Its divine ability was shocking. How could an innate Tao seed be weaker than a human? The great Tao of time was inconceivable. Fan Wu-jia had exclaimed and been shocked by all kinds of inconceivable things that happened in the ultimate. But how could he not be amazed and shocked as well? With the insignificance of a mere post-celestial living being, he had plotted for the innate great Tao and actually succeeded. How could he be an ordinary person? Could a post-celestial living being compare to the innate great Tao? This kind of shock was like an ant mastering the advanced mathematics of humans in front of a dinosaur. Would a dinosaur dare to laugh at an ant? Now, this ant had used advanced mathematics to control a robotic dinosaur, pressing one of their own kind onto the ground and beating it violently. The beating had forcefully awakened these old monsters. The beating had made the mummies recall the fear of being dominated by post-celestial living beings. This kind of fear was the same feeling that the insufferably arrogant post-celestial living beings felt when they faced the rise of post-celestial living beings. When they faced the rise of the human race, the red flag is in chaos at the foot of Mount Buzhou, and the long tassels are rising to bind the Kuan Pang. Yuan Yu sighed faintly. He recalled an incomparably ancient mural in the devil cult, where a flood rushed down from the 9 heavens and spread across the entire primitive land. A giant with the head of a python and the body of a human, covered in black scales, stepped on a black dragon, and had a green python coiled around his hand. He used the top of his head to break the heavenly pillar that supported the heaven and earth. A god-devil carrying 2 swords on his back stood beside him, raising his long tassels. The boundless sea of blood at the foot of Mount Bujo churned with monstrous waves, turning into a long red tassel in the hands of the god-devil, trapping a giant Kuin who was transforming from a giant Kuin to a giant Pung. The lower half of his body was a giant Pung, and the upper half of his body was a giant Pung. The god-devil was trapping the giant Pung, and at the same time he reached out his hand to press down on the giant. The long sword on his back was half unsheathed, and the expression of the god-devil was filled with endless murderous intent. The giant struggled under the god-devil's hand, his face full of fear, as if the long sword would slash down at the next moment. The depiction of the mural stopped at this scene. This was an ancient and secretive mural. On the altar of the ancestral court of the heavenly demon cult, very few people could see it, except for the 10 great demon masters or the deputy hierarch who founded the demonic path. No one could see it. It was said that it depicted the scene when Gong Gong touched the Bujo mountain in anger, slaughtering the demonic ancestor Mingi, binding the Kuanping who had been stirring up trouble, killing Gong Gong and saving the untainted land. Even the deputy cult masters of the devil cult, who rose later, snorted at this, thinking that it was a boasted legend when the devil cult was weak and ancient. On the other hand, Grand Luo, like Yuan, you did not dare to look at it that way. However, their memories were blank as well. Not everything in the primordial era had an answer, and not all Grand Luo who lived eternally knew about history. History was always shrouded in fog, and even those who experienced it were sometimes forced to forget some things. There were some things that should not be known. If Dara knew everything, he most likely would not live to become Dara. Therefore, Yuan Yu did not see Nuwa create a human, did not see Huta transform into reincarnation, did not see the Emperor of Heaven ascend to the throne, did not see Gong Gong touch Mount Bujo in anger, did not see River Styx suppress Ro, did not see the destruction of the Heaven Court, and did not see the death of Tung Wang Kung. Because of the shock of the great divine arts, he should not see what he should not see, and because these secrets were too dirty. Fan Wu Jie's divine arts were definitely created by someone who had seen the mural with his own eyes, or Fan Wu Jie had also seen the kind of mural and understood something from it. Fan Wu Jie reached out his hand to restrain the giant Kuin, turned around and wrote on it. He said to Yuan Yu, "Old Taoist, follow me straight to the bottom of the Blood Sea. Let's locate the North Star position." Yuan Yu flew onto the giant Kuin's back, and Fan Wu Jie reigned in the giant Kuin, driving it into the depths of the Blood Sea. The old monsters did not stop them. These two had just been pushed into the Blood Sea Tribulation Eye, and they were still full of divine energy. The old monsters were already half dead from the destructive tribulation power, and they could still fight with their lives on the line, but they would have to pay a heavy price to stop them. Besides, the old monsters could already tell that these two must have found the secret that the dried corpses had been hiding for a long time, and they had escaped from this place. If that was the case, why should they stop them? Only by sitting and watching them fight with King Poye's old subordinates would they be able to seize the opportunity to escape and not be used by the dried corpses. These people were too smart. If King Poye's old subordinates could escape this place on their own, they would have done so a long time ago. Since they had joined hands with the old monsters who had fallen into the ultimate, there must be something they wanted to use. They were not the dried corpses people, and being used like this, they would most likely be used to fill the pit. Originally, they had no choice but to cooperate with King Poye's old subordinates. But now that these two hotheads had appeared, wouldn't it be easier for them to fish in troubled waters? The dried corpses were the ones who were anxious. Therefore, not only did these old monsters not make a move, they even secretly blocked the dried corpse's path. The dried corpse sneered and said to the other dried corpse beside him, who was not much better off than him, "These people don't trust us. When did we ever trust them? If we are using each other, then don't say such hurtful words like trust. The most important thing now is to keep an eye on those two. Now that they have restrained the giant Kuin, they can already dive into the blood sea, and they have also calculated the changes in the king's corpse. They may very well ruin our grand plan." The dried corpse said confidently, "The plan that we have waited for so many eons to complete is not that simple. They are still too far away, and there is no chance of them succeeding." Chapter 1258. The giant Leviathan dove into the blood sea. As the giant Leviathan dove deeper and deeper, the endless amount of filthy blood water began to attack the red silk that wrapped around the giant Leviathan. Soon, the red silk that covered the blood sea began to shrink until it was just enough to wrap around Fan Wujia and Yuanyu. The destructive tribulation power of the blood sea began to secretly penetrate into the red silk, but it was blocked by the black leather clothes that they were wearing. So this is how the black leather clothes are used. Old Taoist Yuanyu clicked his tongue and said, "It looks like those old subordinates of King Poya have thought through every step of their plan more than once during the endless years of the Eon's tribulation, perfecting their plan to the most optimal level. With the black leather clothes, even a Tao lord who has been severely injured by the destructive power of the tribulation can have a chance to dive into the blood sea unharmed." To Fan Wujia and Yuanyu, a little bit of filthy blood water was nothing. But in the blood sea, the destructive tribulation power used the filthy blood water as a carrier, evolving into a blood sea devilish tribulation. The filthy blood water swirled around Fan Wujia and Yuanyu as if it had a mind of its own, trying to invade their bodies. Fan Wujia could sense that this filthy blood water contained a strange life force. It was not a good thing to be infected by such a filthy life force. In the best-case scenario, one would transform into a blood sea demon. In the worst-case scenario, one's Dharma body would give birth to countless strange life forms. Their flesh and blood would transform into demons. Their primordial spirits would be infected into ghosts. Their limbs would mutate into demons. Their impurities would give birth to venomous insects. And their magic power would degenerate into strange creatures. Every part of their body could be irrigated by the blood water and become a breeding ground for life. Because these life forms were infected by the destructive power of the tribulation and filthy blood water, they were born with extremely twisted bodies. At this time, the black leather clothes emitted a faint divine light, isolating the pervasive power of the blood water. The two relied on the black leather clothes to resist the power of the filthy blood water, and the giant Leviathan to resist the repulsive power of the blood sea. They dived towards the deepest part of the blood sea according to Yuanyu's 9 palaces, Flying Star, and the chariot of the Big Dipper. The closer they got to the depths of the blood sea, the stranger the power of the destructive tribulation and the blood water became. The speed of the giant Kuin was not slow, and it was steadily getting closer to Fan Wu Jia's target. Along the way, there were some strange creatures that made one's scalp go numb, and they brushed past them. The life forms that Fan Wu Jia saw along the way could be said to be an eye-opener for Tao monarchs. Sometimes, when he brushed shoulders with the giant Leviathan, even Fan Wu Jia felt apprehensive and a faint fear. He lowered his voice and said in a hoarse voice, "Old Taoist, you are very knowledgeable. Can you recognize the monsters from the blood sea that we encountered just now?" Yuanyu also replied in a low voice, "I told you before that the blood sea is the most incredible life essence embryo in the primordial world. Do you believe me now? The blood sea is a giant mother's fetus, which gave birth to the most powerful, complicated, and filthiest life force in the primordial world. When Pangu created the world, it went through 9 days and one day changed 9 times, creating all things in the primordial world. On the first day, Pangu the great god created 9 Dharma idols. These Dharma idols disintegrated and turned into all things in the primordial world. Among them, there was the water ancestor of Pangu, who disintegrated and turned into the water element of the world, 9 kinds of innate true water. Among them, there was a mass of Panga's dirty blood, which fell into the Een Sea of the earth and turned into the boundless blood sea, which contained the incredible life force of Pangu, the great god. Because it was the blood essence that flowed out when Pangu created the world, it was injured, so it was polluted by the impurities of the world. Therefore it has endless life force, but it is also filthy. After the world was created, this blood sea, after countless years, with its incredible life force, gave birth to an unimaginably evil existence. Fan Wu Jie said seriously, "The demon ancestor of slaughtering." Yuan Yu nodded and said, "The two demon ancestor of the primordial world both had amazing backgrounds. One was the evilest life born in the boundless blood sea, and the other was transformed by the monstrous resentment and desire to destroy left by Pangu. Actually, the demon ancestor of slaughtering was also an authentic Pangu, a life born from Panga's blood essence. If it had not been polluted by the impurities of the world when it was born, there would have been 13 ancestor sorcerers in this world. But because it was polluted by the impurities, it had an inextinguishable evil nature from the moment it was born. The life born in the blood sea is unimaginably complicated and extremely terrifying. Without the suppression of the almighty divine masters, the normal life in primordial world would have been replaced by those evil and terrifying existences sooner or later. But these lives are just the impurities of the blood sea. The real essence born in the blood sea, which monopolizes 90% of the fortune of the blood sea, is still the demon fetus that was born in the first place. Ancestor River Styx. The path of diabolism is born from the fate of the 3,000 chaotic divine demons. When the 3,000 chaotic divine demons were killed by Pangu, a resentment and desire to destroy the primordial world remained. This great anger, great destruction, great slaughter, and great destruction were unstoppable and indelible. Blessed by chaos, it gave birth to the demon ancestor, Ro. At the same time, it was also infected by the blood essence of Pangu when he was injured when he created the world. It created an unimaginably powerful demon fetus that was extremely evil and born with the power to kill all living beings. Originally, heaven gave birth to Ro, a demon thought that was born from the evil thoughts of the chaotic divine demons, and it also gave birth to an extremely evil demon fetus. As long as Ro's demon thought enters the blood sea demon fetus, a demon ancestor that inherited the evil thoughts and remaining power of the 3,000 chaotic divine demons will be born. The primordial world will face a cruel and terrifying disaster. This will be the greatest disaster in the history of primordial world. The primordial world is in danger of collapse. No one can stop the demon ancestor. However, Pangu, the great god, looked after primordial world and separated Ro's demon thought from the blood sea demon fetus. He used his own life force to give birth to a new consciousness in the demon fetus, preventing the demon thought and the demon fetus from merging into one. The real demon ancestor could not be born. Although the consciousness of the demon fetus inherited the evil demonic nature of the blood sea, it also inherited Panga's will. He is River Styx. After the ancestor River Styx was born, he inherited the legacy of Pangu and cut off the old path of diabolism of the evil thoughts of the chaotic divine demons. He created the primordial world and inherited the new path of diabolism of Pangu. He was blessed by heaven and was the destined demon ancestor. However, Ro was also born with the evil thoughts of the chaotic divine demons and inherited the great power of the chaotic divine demons. He was the destined demon ancestor who inherited the old path of diabolism of chaos. As soon as he was born, he was affected by the evil thoughts of the chaotic divine demons. He wanted to destroy the primordial world and complete the karma of destroying the world. However, when Ro was born, he was schemed against by the great god Pangu. He only had an indestructible demon thought and did not have the physical body of a chaotic divine demon. Therefore, although he was strong, he had a weakness. In the end, he was severely injured by the joint forces of the great divines. Ro, demon ancestor, also knew his weakness. Therefore, he always wanted to take back his body, which was the demon fetus of ancestor River Styx. This was the karmic entanglement of the two demon ancestor. The two demon ancestor were born to be enemies. If either of them devoured the other, they would become the one and only demon ancestor who could destroy the world. Other than the blood seed demon fetus, the remaining physical bodies that could contain Ro's demon thought were all the strongest innate divine demons born by Pango, such as the 12 groups of witches. Before the primordial world was shattered, the ancestor River Styx set up a trap. He used the body of an innate divine demon born by Pango, the sinkhole divine demon, as bait to lure Ro to the sinkhole and seal the demon ancestor of destruction. With the body of the sinkhole divine demon as a seal, the demon god of destruction was forever suppressed, and Ro's body became the shackles that trapped him. Although the demon ancestor of Ro obtained the body, he was suppressed forever. But there were worlds falling into the sinkhole continuously, strengthening the power of the demon ancestor of destruction. One day, the demon ancestor of Ro would break free from the seal, possess the body of the sinkhole divine demon, and destroy the primordial world. Yuan Yu sighed and said, "This is the truth recorded in the internal records of the Devil Tao. Now, you should understand why the power of the righteous Tao is far stronger than the Devil Tao, but has never been able to destroy us, right? Because the Devil Tao is a line of defense and also an important force to protect the primordial world. Without the Devil Tao suppressing the demon god of destruction, the primordial world would welcome a terrible disaster." Fan Wujie said in surprise, "If that's the case, why can the demon ancestor of destruction, Ro, still be one of the two demon ancestor of the Devil Tao?" Yuan Yu revealed a mocking smile. "Isn't it because of you righteous people? Every day, you shout about killing demons and protecting the Tao, and you shout about killing us. If we didn't join forces with the old subordinates of Ro to protect ourselves, wouldn't we have been killed by you long ago? Moreover, among us, the true disciples of the Devil Tao, cultivating the Devil Tao of destruction is also a kind of taboo. But who asked the Devil Tao of destruction to be easier to achieve than the Devil Tao of slaughter? The Devil Tao of slaughter wants to set off a killing tribulation, and in the life and death battle with you righteous people, they can comprehend a trace of the true meaning of the killing tribulation, and then they can cultivate to become Tao Lords. Each of them is a person who faces the tribulation, a child of destiny. The demon lords of slaughter in the past all came from the great war of the Taoists and demons, the great tribulation of 10,000 years, and the immeasurable tribulation. As for the other great Azura Devil Tao, Heavenly Devil Tao, Blood Devil Tao, In Devil Tao, they're all suppressed by you righteous people. Only the Devil Tao of slaughter and the Devil Tao of destruction are able to suppress you righteous people, suppress everything, and attack the foundation of Taiji. Compared to the Devil Tao of slaughter, which has 10,000 deaths and 1 life, the Devil Tao of destruction only needs to sink a world into the ultimate ruin, and then they can borrow the energy of the world's destruction, doomsday, fear, and despair. Whether it is to condense the Tao seed of destruction, or to prove both internally and externally, there is a path to follow. Now, 9 out of 10 people from the Devil Tao to become a demon monarch have to rely on the Tao of destruction. Yuan Yu saw the strange look in Fan Wujie's eyes, and he quickly waved his hand and said, "I'm not." The Beauty Lady sect is the direct disciple of the Yin Yang demon master of the Devil Tao, and it is the orthodox force under the command of the demon ancestor of slaughter. When dealing with the group of madmen under the demon ancestor of destruction, I will only be more active than you. If I rely on the demon monarch of destruction, Yuan Yu pointed above his head and said in a low voice, "That person will be the first to not let me go." Fan Wujie noticed a strange little beast that looked like a cat and a dolphin. It was staring at Yuan Yu with a pair of blood-red eyes, and the corners of its mouth seemed to be pulled into a smile. The eyes of the little beast were very lively, and there was a playful smile in them. Fan Wujie and the demon that swam past the giant Kuan looked at each other, and suddenly A bone-chilling feeling rose in his body. This is too strange. This is too scary. Fan Wu Jia was very nervous. The Sea of Blood is the river Styx, and this Sea of Blood is also a clone of the demon ancestor of slaughter. The thing that swam past, could it be a clone of the demon ancestor of slaughter? Fan Wu Jia glanced at Yuan Yu, who still did not know that he had said too much, and he tactfully did not say anything about this matter. After all, I am not the one who offended the demon ancestor of slaughter. It is better for me to die than for you. Fan Wu Jia thought gloomily. Fan Wu Jia calculated that they had been diving for at least 3 days before they finally reached the deepest part of the Sea of Blood. It was dark here, and even with the vision of the Tao monarch, they could not see their fingers in front of them. Yuan Yu used some unknown method to make a strange divine light illuminate the surrounding Sea of Blood, and what appeared in front of them was a white bone mountain. A huge abyss lay in front of them, and the bottom was as dark as ink, like a bottomless pit. There was indeed a huge white bone mountain standing tall in the abyss. The cold, deathly white and the darkness of the abyss separated their vision, as if it could swallow people's minds and make them sink into it. The white bone mountain emitted a frightening, murderous aura, and the murderous aura surged on the white bone mountain, forming a black tide. The murderous aura exuded a boundless and ancient aura, as if they had returned to the most barbaric era of the prehistoric era. Just a little bit of it was enough to make Fan Wu Jia feel as if he had been immersed in ice water. What is this? Fan Wu Jia stammered. Who left this divine mountain behind? Why does it give me the feeling that it is even more terrifying than the remains of King Poya? Even the undying bodies of the great Azura would be worn away by the Sea of Blood. Why does this white bone mountain give me the feeling that it is suppressing the Sea of Blood? Let's dive deeper. Yuan Yu was also shocked. He hurriedly urged the giant Kuin to dive deeper, but the giant Kuin seemed to be extremely afraid of the white bone mountain, and it could not help but whine like a kitten. It began to struggle, not daring to go forward. Old Taoist Yuan Yu could only comfort it as he chose a position that was far away from the white bone mountain and continued to dive. Along the white bone mountain, they went deeper into the abyss. The abyss was millions of feet deep, and when they saw the ground, both Fan Wu Jia and old Taoist Yuan Yu turned pale. The giant Kuin shuddered as if it was the end of the world. At the bottom of the Blood Sea was a deathly pale land. Yuan Yu placed his hand on it and felt a softness in his touch. This was the land of the Blood Sea, where King Poya's palm bone was located. In other parts of the Land of Bones, where the remains of Grand Immortal Realm were exposed, even though there was no layer of divine light, there was still an immortal divinity and demonic nature hidden in them, making them indestructible. Even if Fan Wu Jie used all of his strength, he would not be able to grind away a single bone powder. But here, King Poya's bones had decayed. Not even the slightest bit of divinity or demonic nature remained. Even the essence of destruction that had been hidden deep within the body was completely gone. Not far away, the divine mountain of white bones that was deeply rooted in King Poya's hand exuded an extremely terrifying pressure that suffocated everyone. Even the flesh and bones that had remained and scathed in the Sea of Blood felt as if they were about to break apart. Even the divinity in Dara's remains has been erased by that baleful energy. Old Taoist Yuan Yu said in horror. No wonder King Poya was not worried that his old subordinates would not be able to pull out the embolus. It turns out that the bottom of the Blood Sea has long been corroded. The only reason why they are still holding on now is because of the suppression of this white bone mountain. Fan Wu Jia looked up at the white bone mountain. The baleful energy wrapped around it was too terrifying. It was scarier than the entire Blood Sea. Standing in front of it, one would feel as if their body and soul would be destroyed, and it would make one tremble and want to worship it. There was no demonic nature in the white bone mountain, only the purest, coldest, and most indifferent divinity. In front of it, King Poya's entire body seemed weak and insignificant. We need to break through the rotting crust of the Blood Sea, and from there, we will enter King Poya's body. Old Taoist Yuan Yu planned. Fan Wu Jia was still in a daze. He gestured the general shape of the White Bone Mountain, then suddenly said, "This White Bone Mountain is big at the top and small at the bottom. It's like it's upside down." Old Taoist Yuan Yu shuddered when he heard that, then quickly covered Fan Wu Jia's mouth and said, "My ancestors, can you please shut up? If we talk too much, we might die." Fan Wu Jia finally reacted. The top was big at the bottom, and the bottom was small, and it was stabbed into King Poya's palm bone. Wasn't that just a bone spike? King Poya plunged into the Blood Sea whirlpool, grabbed a handful of broken pieces from the ground, and held them up, but she was accidentally stabbed by a bone spike in her palm? Old Taoist Yuan Yu probed the crust, then hurriedly pulled back his hand and said, "This is not a place we can go alone. We need scapegoats." No wonder those dried corpses gathered a bunch of Tao, lords, and gold immortals who fell into this place. If we don't sacrifice a few scapegoats, there will be unimaginable terror ahead. Fan Wu Jia said in a low voice, "Who are you going to send to die?" Yuan Yu smiled and said, "Don't we have a bunch of old monsters and dried corpses above us? We still have a bunch of old friends behind us. We were wrong. If we don't find the origin of Mortal Realm, they definitely won't let us die. What a great group of bodyguards. Why waste them?" "You," Fan Wu Jia praised sincerely, "you are so evil. You can come to die. I'll go to get rich." Yuan Yu let out a strange cry. He took out a bronze mirror and studied it for a while. The bronze mirror shone brightly. He did not know what kind of numinous treasure it was, but it had not been destroyed after such a long time in the depths of the ultimate. Even the Blood Sea calamity, I could not block its transmission. "Old Taoist Three Poisons, where have you been? Are you trying to take Dara for yourself? Let me tell you, even if you are gone, the beauty sect is still here. If you dare to stand me up, I will slaughter all your women." Old Taoist Yuan Yu said sternly, "Old Demon Shui too, how dare you? The beauty sect is the direct disciple of the Yin Yang Demon Lord. Try and touch me, and I'm in big trouble." Yuan Yu scolded. "The map you guys gave me marked that group of Asuras were forces that I could come into contact with. Moreover, they were the disciples of the Annihilation Demon Ancestor. In the end, I pretended to be a disciple of the Annihilation Demon Ancestor and went to get in contact with them. They were King spies of the Annihilation Demon Ancestor and the Annihilation Demon Ancestor. Now I and the target are in the Blood Sea Calamity Eye, which is the Blood Sea prison under the ancient city of Azura. Hurry and organize people to save me." The other side of the bronze mirror suddenly fell silent. The bronze mirror emitted a beam of light that illuminated the surroundings for thousands of miles. After observing the general environment, the voice of Shui, Tu's patriarch, came from the other side. "Oh my God! Old Taoist Three Poisons has been captured by Azura and is now trapped in the Blood Sea Calamity Eye, waiting for us to save him." A noisy quarrel came from the other side of the bronze mirror. Then a beam of light flashed and was about to be cut off. Yuan Yu panicked. Hugging the bronze mirror, he shouted, "You will never guess what I found in the Blood Sea Calamity Eye. The old Taoist is going to screw us over." Fan Wu Jia heard Yuan Yu's gritted teeth and said, "The demonic path is so disloyal, no wonder he wants to kill a bunch of old friends as his stepping stones." The bronze mirror flashed twice, and an annoying voice came from the other side. "Anyway, we're not going to go back to save him. So what's the harm in listening? Knowing what is down there can also enrich the information about the ultimate. For example, this time we know the tricks of Shemali and the other Asuras." The bronze mirror shone brightly again. "Old Taoist Three Poisons, since you are in the Blood Sea Calamity Eye, why didn't you contact us immediately? If I can't find a way out, I'm afraid that in the second year after you hear that I've fallen into the Blood Sea of Tribulation Eye, You'll kill your way to my door and rob my beauty sect clean. Yuan Yu roared. Do you think I don't know you bastards? Nonsense. You are slandering me. Shwetua Jati, don't run away. Old Taoist, 3 poisons can still be saved. It will not look good if you rob his things. If he complains to Yin Yang Demon Master, we will not be able to answer to him. Wait until he is completely dead. The demonic path is united, and we help each other. My fellow Taoists are loyal to each other, and we will never do such a thing. Yuan Yu was furious when he heard what they said. He stomped his feet and said, Don't talk so much. I know you will not take the risk to come down here. I found a shortcut that leads to the deeper part of the ultimate. There is a group of evil disciples of destruction who are imprisoned here, and they are planning to break out of the prison. Tell the Buddhist League about this. They have innate spirit treasures, so they can come down here safely. When the time comes, you can act according to the situation. As soon as he finished, he told them the plan he came up with and quickly cut off the communication. He laughed dryly to Fan Wujie and said, They are all a bunch of people who will not act until they see the reward. Let them plot against the Buddhist League for us first, and when they see the benefits, they will take the risk and come down here. Suddenly, Fan Wujie remembered what Yuan Yu did just now. He placed his hand on King Poye's rotten bones. A cold intent that could penetrate through heaven and earth swept over, causing his body to involuntarily tremble. Feeling the cold intent that could penetrate through his primordial spirit and even freeze time, Fan Wujie suddenly realized something. A chill ran down his spine, and he said in a hoarse voice, This is Xianming True Water. Chapter 1259. At this moment, Fan Wujie's hair stood on end. Why was there Xianming True Water here? Why did the murderous aura carried by the mysterious bone spur contain the cold essence of Xianming True Water? Xianming True Water was one of the 9 great innate true water of the primitive universe. Just like Fan Wujie's time light true water, it was a manifestation of the essence of the great Tao of water. In Fan Wujie's hands, the time light true water had many miraculous uses. This place was like a black tide that had corroded Poya King's divine bones, so the dark nether true water that was surging beneath the earth's crust was extremely frightening. This was not a second-grade acquired product like the filthy blood water that was surging in the blood sea above. Fan Wujie could tell that the black tide that he had touched and sensed was a genuine, innate product. In ancient times, there were not many beings who could control innate true water, but they were not rare either. Just like how the phoenix could control the Nanmingli fire, many innate divine beasts could control certain kinds of innate true water. For example, the dragon clan could control several kinds of innate true water, and the black dragon could control Xianming true water. However, with just a single bone spur, it could create a black tide that eroded Dara's innate divine body, just like the black tide under the earth's crust. Such an innate divine demon was definitely not an ordinary being even in ancient times. He must have a great background, and he might even be one of the few innate divine gods who are the direct descendants of the great god Pangu. Have you guessed the origin of the bone spur that pierced Poya's body? Fan Wujie stared at Yuan Yu, waiting for him to tell him the truth. Yuan Yu said lightly, Even in ancient times, there were not many innate divine demons who could have such a powerful aura with just a bone spur, and there were even fewer who had the same essence as the Xianming true water. It was either the rock patriarch or the ancestral wizard Xianming. But the most well-known image of the ancestral wizard Xianming was a ferocious-looking giant beast covered in bone spurs, while the rock patriarch's true body was covered in scales and feathers. No matter if it was the true body of the Kuan fish or the true body of the rock, they would not have left such a strong, murderous aura. That doesn't mean anything, Fan Wujie said. It can only mean that the great god Xianming had entered the returning ruins before, and was even injured here, breaking the bone spikes on his body. Yaji must have found something at the bottom of the blood sea. He let the bone spur pierce into his palm as part of his plan. He must be hinting something to his old subordinates. Unfortunately, we don't know what he found at the bottom of the blood sea. How did he manage to capture two things with shocking secrets? The fragment of Daiyu Divine Mountain and Xianming's bone spur. What's the connection between them? Yuan Yu pondered for a moment, then shook his head and said, "The most important thing now is not to figure out the secrets here, but to escape from here as soon as possible. This place is getting weirder the more I look at it." Yuan Yu took out the bronze mirror and said in a low voice, "Don't panic, I'll go get someone." Great Master Fa Jing was holding a purple-gold alms bowl. He was still dressed in a moon-white robe, and he looked like an otherworldly eminent monk standing next to the blood sea in his palm. The bloody red sea was filled with ferocious waves. On the shore, there was a gentle and handsome eminent monk dressed in moon-white robes. The contrast between the two was extremely strong, and it made Great Master Fa Jing look even more elegant. Behind him were dozens of ascetic monks with withered bodies, dressed in robes made of cloth and silent. Apart from them, there were also a few old monks with unfathomable magic power. They had a circular halo behind their heads, and they could maintain their purity even in the depths of the returning ruins. The Blood Sea Forbidden Prison is strange and unpredictable, and no one knows how many Destruction Devil disciples are imprisoned here. Junior brothers, be careful. The Beauty Lady Sect's Taoist Three Poisons, who was placed next to Fan Tianjun, has finally sent a message to the Devil Tao. They were trapped in the Blood Sea Calamity Eye, and they accidentally found a shortcut that led to the depths of the returning ruins. They also saw through the trap set by great Azura King Piji, a remnant of Ro, who was imprisoned here years ago. Piyaji found many terrifying secrets here, and it is highly likely that they are related to the key to unlocking the seal of the Destruction Demon Ancestor. Therefore, the group of Destruction Devil disciples and Piyaji's old subordinates have once again planned to release the Destruction Devil God during the immeasurable tribulation. An old monk put his palms together and said, "Senior Brother Fa Jing, the Devil Tao has always been cunning. Did they deliberately leak this information?" Great Master Fa Jing said in a low voice, "I also have doubts about this, so I used the purple gold alms bowl to ask Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva." The old monk's eyes lit up, and they looked at each other with joy. It was the old monk who took the lead and said, "Has Bodhisattva issued a decree?" Bodhisattva said that the slaughtered demon ancestor drowned this place with the blood sea and trapped and killed Ro's old subordinate Piyaji. There must be something strange about this. Who is Piyaji? Is she worthy of the demon ancestor personally taking action? Back when Ro was still alive, she couldn't even defeat the patriarch of River Styx, let alone a mere Azura King. Why would the demon ancestor personally scheme against her? It seems that the patriarch of River Styx is trying to hide something, which is why he created this blood sea to suppress it. Furthermore, the patriarch of River Styx ordered Shemali to guard this place, which is also a little strange. Shemali isn't the patriarch of River Styx's trusted subordinate, but a traitor. In the Blood Sea, River Styx has many experts under him. If this place isn't important, why would he send someone to guard it? If this place is important, why would he send a traitor to guard it? Furthermore, there's a part of the Blood Sea here which is equivalent to a clone of River Styx. When necessary, the whole Blood Sea will turn into a clone of the demon ancestor of slaughter. What kind of important secret would require the River Styx to guard this place personally? Great Master Fa Jing said solemnly, "What I mean is, this doesn't seem to be fake. It's very likely that Fan Tianjun and the others have really found a clue, and it's related to a very shocking secret. The ultimate is related to the two demon ancestor of the Devil Tao. We have to investigate it. If we can find anything, our Buddhism will be prepared." Great Master Fa Jing called out to the group of sons of Buddha behind him, and with a push of the purple gold alms bowl in his hand, a pure land appeared on the blood sea in front of him. In the pure land there was a golden mat, decorated with 7 treasures. Heavenly flowers flowed down, and clear Lianhua springs were everywhere, isolating all the destructive power of calamity outside. The entire blood sea's impact and obliteration could not shake this pure land at all. Just as the purple gold alms bowl was about to shine brightly and manifest a sacred Buddhist land that shone in all directions, the blood sea suddenly rose. The sea of blood suddenly rose up, and the entire sea of blood seemed to tremble, as if it was about to open its eyes. The purple gold alms bowl trembled and quickly dimmed, turning into a broken pot. It could barely support a group of dozens of people. It swayed in the sea of blood, bobbing up and down, looking very unremarkable. Only then did the blood sea calm down. Great Master F.A. Jing, who was standing in the jar, did not know what was going on, but he still pretended to be calm. The old monks behind him were surprised. Why did the primordial numinous treasure no longer show the Dharma to illuminate all directions, to release the foolish and evil beings in the blood sea of the ultimate? However, F.A. Jing said that the Dharma had a righteous appearance, but also a broken appearance, and that those who could not break through this barrier were not fated people, and so on. One of the inconspicuous ascetics twitched the corner of his mouth, and did not speak, but bowed to the blood sea, secretly praying. After dozens of breaths, the purple gold alms bowl that had been spinning on the shore by the waves of the blood sea finally swayed and floated towards the depths of the blood sea. The elder ancestor of the Fan family trembled, and his whole body swayed. His body was full of the color of old age, and he exuded a decaying aura. It did not seem like a stench, but it was more uncomfortable than a stench, and it looked like he only had 1 breath left. The mummy sighed in front of him. This is the first time I've seen a cultivator from the outside world in a worse state than me. If it wasn't for the imminent start of the plan, people like you would not have lived for long. Forget it. I'll count you in as well. The elder ancestor of the Fan family looked at it calmly with his turbid eyes. He followed the mummy and stood there for a long time before a faint voice could be heard. Undead! Medicine! The 3rd elder ancestor of the Fan family followed the group of Taoists of the Demon Tao, and carefully followed Taoist Yuan Yu's guidance, hiding in the depths of the blood sea palm. They were riding on a demonic ship made of white bones, and it was not a problem for the well-prepared Demon Tao to take down a mere blood sea eye of tribulation. Everyone present was a group of old demons who stood at the pinnacle of the Demon Tao, and if the orthodoxies they inherited were counted to the bottom, they were either the massacre demon ancestor or the destruction demon ancestor. One by one, they returned to the ultimate as if they had returned home. Seeing the sea of blood in the palm, at least half of the people revealed a happy smile, and the other half impatiently began to refine the blood river true water. For the Buddhists, this was the most dangerous land in the world, but for the demonic path, this was a treasure trove, one of the best blessed lands. If not for this, those destruction demon disciples and Ro's old clique would not have been able to withstand the Ians. Taoist 3 poisons. The Shuet 2 king was a burly man, but he had a pair of comical small eyes that shone with a sinister glint. These eyes ruined his square face and bearded heroic image, and his small eyes were only the size of beans, which made him look even more comical. Fortunately, ever since this Shuet 2 king joined the Demon Tao and slaughtered the rogue cultivators, the righteous Tao, and the Demon Tao who laughed at him, no one dared to use this matter to mock him anymore. The Shuet 2 king said with a righteous expression, Taoist 3 poisons for the sake of our brotherhood. I, Shuet 2, am willing to sacrifice myself to save you, disregarding my own safety, and enter this land of despair. It would be strange if you were here to save me. You don't even want to save your own brother. You are the scum of the righteous Tao, but you are still living without purpose and are indifferent to it. You must have taken a fancy to the great fortune hidden in the eyes of the blood sea, calamity, not to mention the demonic creatures bred in the blood sea. Even the bone spurs that fell from the ancestral witch and the scales and claws of the Dharmakaya of Dara were obtained by the demon Tao, and they are all supreme materials to refine a few earth-shattering, demonic treasures. On the other side of the bronze mirror, Yuan, you scolded. Don't say that I didn't warn you. You can't touch these things, and it is already a great fortune to get some benefits from them. If you are too greedy, you probably won't be able to return. The Xianming bone. An old demon trembled with excitement. This is a supreme material that can't be refined even after killing so many people. There is hope for my white bone bridge of helplessness. An old demon who looked like a ghost from the 9 Serenities was also envious. Get lost. This natural sword shape, of course, will be used to refine the Xianming white bone sword. I used the power of hundreds of fellow Taoists in the sect to customize this formation for this precious material. Ajati was a sword cultivator, and he immediately retorted, Your appetite is too big. There are so many of us. How can it be enough? Of course, we will get a bunch of beads. White bone exquisite beads, white bone rui beads, white bone heart-locking hammers. Millions of beads will be used as materials to refine demonic treasures, and everyone will have a share. Refine this blood sea into a treasure with the white bones as the pole and the blood sea as the banner surface. Refine it into a mysterious Een white bone banner. It can be used to set up the mysterious Een white bone array. An old demon said greedily, For the ancestral witch's bone, of course, we have to go to the ends of the earth and search the yellow springs to get the first sect-guarding array of the ancient, which sect in the past, the 12 capital heaven divine fiend array, an old monster covered in witchcraft medicine, with witchcraft curses tattooed on his face, was clamoring to resurrect the ancestral witch and restore the glory of the ancient witch sect. Obviously, none of the old demons present were interested in his idea. Yuan Yu was at the bottom of the blood sea, in an extremely secretive position, and he replied to the Shuai-Tu king in a low voice, I am still in hiding, so I don't have time to say too much. Pull out this bone spur, and we will be able to open a path to the bottom of the blood sea. When that time comes, that kid and I will ride the Kuin deep into the blood sea, and you will use the law to force those old subordinates of Ro. The evil disciples of destruction will be in front, and they will know more. After the demon, sect agreed. Yuan Yu put down the bronze mirror and said to Fan Wujia, The cannon fodder is in position. Get ready to begin. I have a feeling that this operation will attract unimaginable danger, and many people will die. Fan Wujia sighed, and then smiled slightly. As long as we are not the ones who die. Let's begin. Set off a boundless calamity and get involved in the unpredictable ancient secrets. Chapter 1260. The primordial layer formed by Poya's divine bones has long been corroded by the Xianming ancestral shaman's murderous energy. The layer here is extremely fragile. It's only because of the extreme cold energy of the Xianming true water that it hasn't been crushed by the weight of the blood sea. But as long as we put in a little more effort, we can break this fragile balance and make the layer collapse. The blood sea in our palms will instantly rush into the blood vessels of Poya's remains. Taoist Yuan, you said in a low voice. But the destruction demon followers must know what we know as well. Even if they know something we don't, it's normal. No matter what these corpses have set up, even if they want to refine this sea of blood and this mountain of white bones, it won't be difficult at all. That's why we have to bring in more forces to muddy the waters. Fan Wujia said, If it's just the two of us, we definitely won't be able to overcome their schemes. But now we've lured enough fish down. It's time to muddy the waters. Fan Wujia and Taoist Yuan Yu came to the top of the White Bone Divine Mountain. Looking down from the top, the mountain was thick at the top and narrow at the bottom. It was shaped like a bone spike nailed into the ground. Fan Wujia took a deep breath. The elixir of immortality in his abdomen heated up slightly. He hooked his right hand, and an illusory river of time surrounded him. He pointed below him, and the river made of cosmic light true water entered the giant Kuin. In the blink of an eye, the giant Kuin grew many times larger. Above the blood sea, Fajing and the others who were crossing on the purple-gold alms bowl suddenly saw the entire blood sea in front of them lift up. They were suddenly lifted hundreds of thousands of feet into the sky. Bottomless abysses appeared on all sides of the blood sea. Every moment, there were countless drops of blood pouring down. They saw the first joint of the 5 fingers heavenly pillar that was level with their line of sight. Fajing looked down, and his pupils turned pure gold. He looked through the blood sea with his heavenly eye. Only then did he see an enormous giant Kuin that even the blood sea couldn't drown raise its tail towards the sky. It was from the blood sea that they were in the blood sea. The filthy blood of the blood sea slid down from the giant Leviathan's tail like an endless abyss. An adult innate Kuin. Master Fajing said in shock, "How is this possible? How can this blood sea raise an adult Kuin? Kuin fish are not godly turtles. Kuin fish are very active. I'm afraid that the blood sea here will shake the mountains and make it difficult to turn around. How can there be an adult Kuin here?" The mummy drove the divine turtles to defend against the waves of the blood sea. The leader of the mummies had lost all of its hair, leaving only a few strands of hair sticking to its scalp like withered vines. It opened its eyes in the direction of the mummies. Its murky eyes that were as yellow as muddy water emitted a strange glow. He watched as the Kuin's tail landed heavily on the bottom of the blood sea. The huge tail that hit the white bone god mountain instantly smashed the ground and also caused the baleful qi and Xianming cold qi to explode. The black Xianming true water mixed with the baleful qi rushed out of the broken ground, freezing everything in its path. Fan Wu Jia, who had temporarily summoned the future body of the Kuin fish with the light of time, could not hold on any longer. He withdrew the light of time true water, which had become extremely weak, and the giant Leviathan returned to its original form, shrunk hundreds of thousands of times. Old Taoist Yuan you had been preparing for a long time. At this time he pointed a finger, and the weak Kuin fish turned into a small whale and fell into his palm. Then Taoist Yuan Yu transformed into a young black dragon that shook its head and wagged its tail. The black dragon swallowed Fan Wujia, then spat out the Xianming true water and froze itself. In the next moment, the Xianming true water and the baleful qi that the Xianming bone thorn had nurtured underground for countless years instantly flooded the area. Countless strange and powerful blood sea monsters were instantly frozen, and the cold spread over the frozen black dragon. The Xianming true water was of the same origin, but it was thousands of times stronger. The power of extreme cold slowly but steadily eroded the black dragon that was frozen in the center. Just like facing a fire, the first thing to do was to burn out an area that had no combustibles. After the black dragon's weak power of Xianming true water sealed itself in ice, it would take some time for the Xianming true water to lower the temperature of the black dragon that was sealed in ice. This created a buffer period. Old Taoist! Fan Wujia's voice came from the belly of the black dragon. How long can you hold on? I can't hold on for more than a few breaths. The black dragon stared anxiously at the frost that was freezing him. Although the black dragon is also a sentient life form that can control the Xianming true water, but there are differences between the Xianming true water and the Xianming true water. Do you know why there are so many types of true water in the universe? But why only the Xianming true water can be called the 9 great connate true water? For example, the 9 underworld water, the ancient cold water, and the god of poverty ice are all innate true water. Their temperatures are lower than the Xianming true water that I, the black dragon, can control. Why is the Xianming true water one of the 9 great innate true water in the universe? Fan Wujia said in a low voice, because only the 9 innate true water can carry out the great Tao of water. Ever since I gained control of the time light true water, the more I understand it, the more I feel its endless mysteries. Its power is almost limitless. No matter what kind of magical power I cultivate, it will gradually fall behind my cultivation. Only with the time light true water, the higher my cultivation, the stronger its power. The other magical powers are just a waste of time and will eventually be eliminated. Yes, there is a limit to the power of the innate true water. Even the ancient cold ice that created the ancient cold era has a limit. Only with the 9 innate true water, as the user's cultivation increases, its power is almost limitless. The Xian Ming true water is cold without a limit. The first Yuan heavy water is heavy without a limit. The 9 heavens weak water is clear without a limit. The blood river true water has no limit. It can contain and melt almost any substance. The first sky true water has no limit. It can contain all the water elements in the ancient cold era into a single drop of the first sky true water. The purification power of the blue sky underworld has no limit. It can purify all filth. The nourishment of the triple light, holy water, has no limit. The perfection of the virtue purified water has no limit. The time symbolized by the time light true water has no limit. At this point, Yuan Yu could not help but smile bitterly. Only the innate gods that control the great Tao of the innate true water can unleash the true power of the innate true water. In their hands, the innate true water is limitless. In the hands of others, the innate true water is just a slightly stronger magical power. The Xianming ancestor shaman is the innate god that controls the Xianming true water. The cold power of the Xianming true water is almost limitless. I, a mere black dragon, can freeze to death with just a thought. In the hands of the Xianming ancestor shaman, the Xianming true water can even freeze the river of time. It can even stop the time of the entire ancient cold era. Although it is only a bone spur, the cold power of the Xianming true water is still very terrifying. I can only try my best to delay the time. When the white bone mountain sinks into King Poye's Dharma body and into his blood vessels, the cold power will naturally disappear without a foundation. Before Yuan Yu could finish, Fan Wujia had already activated the slightly weakened time light true water to help him delay the spread of the ancient cold power. The divine turtle broke through the huge waves created by the giant Koan, allowing the earth-shattering waves to crash against it. Behind the head of the divine turtle, the group of destruction evil disciples with hideous appearances were facing the raging sea of blood. The leader of the group was a mummy that was carved from the bones of a beast. It retained the murderous aura and ferocious appearance of the beast when it was alive, but it was engraved with shaman runes, stained with the blood of Tao monarchs, and covered with a strange devil mask. It looked extremely hideous and ferocious. It carried a demonic aura that made people's hearts hang in suspense. The mummies beat the gongs and beat the drums. The mummies that wore the mummy mask danced along with the beat, their bodies twisting and dancing, imitating the behavior of all kinds of strange and evil monsters. The old monsters that had submitted to them stood aside and watched calmly. Their eyes flashed, and no one knew what they were thinking. The dancing mummies gradually dripped with dark purple blood and sweat. Some mummies carried bronze statues to carry the blood and sweat left behind by the dancers. The mummies dragged out 3 albino animals from behind: a white dog, a white horse, and a white goat. These albino animals were extraordinary. Their eyes flashed with divine light, and their bodies glowed with divine light. The dense spirituality made them look like divine beasts. Someone exclaimed in a low voice, "These are the albino animals from the depths of the divine mountain." The white horse that was dragged out had very strange bones. Its body was thin and slender, and there were 2 protrusions on its skull that looked like horns. An old monster couldn't help but exclaim, "This horse is about to transform into a dragon." Dragon horses are even rarer than true dragons. They are the mounts of sages, but they actually used it as a sacrifice. Why would they use a white horse as a sacrifice? The 9-headed hunchback old man couldn't help but frown. Even the Son of Heaven only needs to offer cattle, sheep, and pig as sacrifices. White horses are usually used to form alliances and offer sacrifices to the heavens. Only a few ancient shaman sects and ancient clans use dogs as sacrifices. Legend has it that there is a divine dog called Panhu that can enter the underworld of Yuta City. Therefore, ancient sects often use dogs as sacrifices to bring the dead to Yuta City. If the white horse is used as a sacrifice to the heavens and the white dog to the earth, then the white goat is used as a sacrifice to their ancestors. The mummies raised the sacrificial knives and cut open the albino animals' throats. Bright red blood with a hint of gold flowed out, emitting a warm fragrance. The divine blood was mixed with wine and poured into the blood sea. The blood of these albino animals is a great medicine. An old monster said, "Even a sip is a great tonic. It can replenish at least 300 years of my vitality." When did these annihilation demons capture these albino animals from the depths of the divine mountain? Someone thought even further. There is a great danger in the depths of the divine mountain. These albino animals are extremely powerful. Not long ago, a white bat was startled and flew out of the divine mountain to capture one of our Tao lords to eat. These annihilation demons actually captured 3 albino animals from there. They must have been preparing for this for a long time. The oldest of the old monsters said, "When I first came here, I think I saw that white dog. It broke into the forbidden area of the island. I didn't expect to see it here. This is something that happened almost 100 million years ago." This old monster had been in the blood sea for almost 100 million years. As soon as the golden blood entered the blood sea, it was quickly absorbed by the filthy blood. The immortal divinity in the depths of the divine mountain was melted by the blood sea, as if it was nourished by something. As the mummies of the officiator began to chant ancient shaman texts, the entire blood sea seemed to come to life. In this complex and vast sea of life, the divinity fused with an ancient consciousness that was slumbering. As the ancient consciousness began to awaken, the black water in the depths of the blood sea, which had been startled by Fan Wujia and the others, began to rise. A cold current surged, and the primordial ice that came from the body of the arcane Nether Grand Shaman was strong enough to freeze the entire blood sea. Everyone was about to be crushed by the cold, and even their souls were about to be frozen. The divine turtle could instinctively sense the cold, and it began to panic and feel uneasy. The divine mountain on its back began to tremble, seeing the black water freezing the bottom layer of the blood sea, as well as the terrifying magical beasts being crushed by the ice. One by one, Lin Feng felt a chill run down his spine. But the mummies were unmoved. They quietly watched as the black water surged up and dyed the blood sea a purplish black. The murderous aura startled all the monsters in the blood sea, and all of them swam to the surface of the sea, forming a wave of monsters. On the side of the demonic path, countless black lines erupted from the sea of blood. These black lines were as dense as hair, dyeing the surrounding sea black. Countless black lines stretched out from the sea surface. These black lines twisted together, wriggling about. Every time they moved, there would be countless tentacles wriggling about. These black, thread-like tentacles were as fast as lightning. Before anyone could react, they would turn into black beams of light that plunged into their body and sucked out all their blood. After the few sky immortals and sky demons who served the big bosses were devoured by the strange black lines, the only ones left on the bone demon ship were the demon monarchs. The bone demon ship was pulled by countless black lines, and they spread to every corner of the ship like seaweed growing, covering every inch of space on the ship. Every black line was made up of countless invisible black threads, and they easily broke through the defensive abilities of the demon Tao monarchs. Their bodies, which had been tempered to be extremely tough, were penetrated by the sharp tips of these black threads, and they were no stronger than tofu. This is some kind of monster from the depths of the blood sea. I'm afraid it's the demonic algae that grows in the blood sea. Those black threads can absorb our blood and flesh, the demon Tao monarch said. The demon Dao monarch used his bone sword to cut off a few of the black threads that were coming at him, and shouted, "Demon monarch soul, try the fire of the underworld." Demon monarch soul released a pale white flame, burning the black threads of the demonic algae and barely stopping them from spreading further. But this seemed to have triggered some kind of instinct of the black threads, and in an instant more black threads shot out of the blood sea, and like a tidal wave, they swept towards everyone. Most of the tentacles headed for Devil, Lord, Blazing Soul. The life force of these devil algae was so strong that even the flames of the underworld would find it hard to burn them to death. Just as Devil, Lord, Blazing Soul cleared a few of them, tens of thousands of tentacles shot towards him. They almost drowned the fire of the underworld with their sheer numbers. Demon monarch soul was scared out of his wits and quickly shouted, "Come help me! This thing is not small, and I'm afraid it's everywhere in the blood sea. Moreover, its life force is very strong, and the damage we cause to it can be healed by the blood sea at any time." The blood-soaked devil lord controlled a number of god devils to slash at the black threads, but when they fell into the blood, they fused with the black threads in a blink of an eye. All of a sudden, the countless black threads seemed to be startled by something, and quickly retracted their tentacles. The Shui-Tu king could feel an ancient consciousness awakening within the blood sea, and his eyelids twitched. Something's not right. Something seems to be awakening within the blood sea. What is it this time? An old devil said wearily, "Have these demons gone mad? Hordes after hordes of them are attacking us. There's no way to kill them. Each one is more difficult to deal with than the last. Our disciples and disciples are all dead. Something's not right." There were many experts in the devil Dao who were proficient in the blood sea Dao, and someone quickly discovered something. This doesn't seem to be a demon. This consciousness comes from the blood sea itself. "Oh my God! Ancestor, you're here too." An old devil filled with killing intent felt his legs go soft, and he knelt on the ground. Someone quickly pulled him up. "It doesn't seem to be the slaughtered demon ancestor. This blood sea has my king's blood." The corpse leader looked at the awakening blood sea. "We've already sacrificed the Eon's tribulation and awakened the remnant soul within my king's blood, turning it into a god. Now the blood sea is my king. My king is the blood sea." Someone from the devil Dao deduced, "It's King Poya." This blood sea not only has the blood true water of the endless blood sea, it also has the blood essence of the great Azura king, Poya Ji. This great Azura king is using the blood sea to nourish his blood, allowing his body to rot. But his blood essence did not die. Those evil remnants sacrificed and nurtured his blood, then took advantage of the time when the bottom of the blood sea was leaking to pour this living blood into Piaget's corpse. The witch cult's old devil shouted, "Don't tell me they still want to resurrect Piaget." No. Just this bit of blood is not enough to revive Dara. The Killing Life sect leader spoke solemnly, but this blood essence is enough to provide some fresh blood chi. Those controlling the corpses. What will happen if the blood sea flows into Poya Ji's corpse? The corpse sect leader's face fell. It's not enough to nurture a terrifying corpse, but the blood chi and soul of this blood sea is enough to temporarily move Poya Ji's corpse. Oh my God, this Dara is about to come back to life. Everyone, hurry and charge into Poya Ji's corpse. Shui-Tu king roared out, "Stay outside and wait for this corpse to crush us like ants." Grandmaster F.A. Jing, who was riding on the purple alms bowl, also had a terrible expression. The devil Dao Sect's trump card is actually this Dara's corpse. "Everyone, follow me. We have to use the purple alms bowl to charge into Dara's corpse. Otherwise, I'm afraid we'll have to face the might of a living corpse of Dara's level." The blood sea surged up to the sky, and a boundless life force burst out, forcefully suppressing the coldness. The blood sea melted again, pouring into the collapsed ground. The rotten veins and the dried corpse were nourished by the warm blood chi from the blood sea, regaining their vitality. King Poya's rotten right hand regained some of its color. In his veins, dark red corpse blood flowed. But now, the blood river formed by the corpse blood began to flow again, and its color gradually turned bright red. Fan Wujia and Taoist Yuan Yu, who had turned into ice, were carried by the blood sea into the ancient blood river formed by King Poya's veins. The people of Diabolism also fled into the underground river of blood in a panic, one after the other from the Buddhist sect. Finally, the group of devil disciples of destruction and the remnants of Luo clan. They rode on the divine turtles and dove into the bottomless abyss of the blood sea. Every time a stream of blood entered Poya Ji's corpse, a stream of life force began to circulate along the blood river, awakening and nourishing the flesh and blood along the way. The corpse, which had been dead for countless years, was gradually recovering. Chapter 1261. The river of blood hidden deep beneath the earth's crust had once been King Poya's arteries and veins, and it was filled with dark red, purplish-black pus and blood of the dead. The corpse's blood slowly flowed through the river of blood, and although it still contained tremendous power, it had already rotted away and was no longer able to give life to King Poya's body. However, King Poya's magic and tribulation power contained within the corpse's blood contained a poison that could poison even Tao Lords to death. A mysterious ice mountain, condensed from Xianming, true water floated in it. At some point in time, a dragon claw covered in black scales broke through the outer layer of the mysterious ice and landed on the ground. Following that, a black dragon slowly climbed onto the floating island of the ice mountain and transformed into Taoist Yu. He tightened his leather robe around his body, trying to resist the blood poison that was everywhere in this place. We've entered the underground river. Brahma Wu Jia crawled out from the hole in the ground. Next, King Poya's blood will flow through the veins and take us to the bottom of the corpse's feet. Then, we'll find a way to find the exit. Yuan Yu stared at the river of blood flowing beneath the iceberg, a rather solemn look on his face. Something doesn't seem right. The aura of death in the river of blood seems to be dissipating. Yuan Yu's eyesight was incredibly sharp, and he was able to see the black cliffs on both sides of the river. The cliffs and the cliffs above his head were deathly black, but they were slowly being revived. As the river of blood flowed through them, the deathly still stone walls seemed to be melting and softening, slowly taking on a golden sheen. Yuan Yu reached his hand down, taking the risk of being poisoned and touching the river of blood below him. There's an enormous will hidden within the river of blood, and this will is extremely compatible with Poya's corpse. It's currently nourishing and awakening some of the corpse's instincts. It's stealing the life force of the blood river true water to nourish its blood, then using the sea of blood in its palm to nourish a bit of living blood. Then it infuses the living blood back into the veins and powers the corpse. Poya Ji really is a good schemer. She's even using her own corpse as a tool. Right now, the Annihilation Demon cultists are in control of the most powerful weapon in the Blood Sea, while Dara's corpse is in control of a powerful trump card. Right now, we're probably not the ones ambushing them from within Poya Ji's corpse. They're the ones chasing after us. Fan Wujia immediately understood what was going on, and his expression turned ugly. He instantly figured out a part of the mummy's plan. Before Poya died, he forced out a part of his spirit blood and mixed it with the blood river true water in the blood sea, forming a blood sea in his palm. With the help of the blood river true water, he kept his spirit blood alive and didn't lose its vitality. After that, his old subordinates in the palm land nurtured the remaining body in his spirit blood. Sacrifice. The corpses must have used a sacrificial method to turn King Poya's remaining body into a god, turning it into a god of this blood sea. Then, by nourishing a bit of living blood, they poured it into King Poya's body. Using the living blood as fuel, King Poya's remaining body became the god that temporarily drove this Dharmakaya of Dalio, with an incomparably powerful trump card in hand. Now, not even a connate numinous treasure or a fiend lord could do anything to them. Mastering the Poya Dharma body is equivalent to mastering the strongest power in the blood sea calamity eye. Yuan Yu said in a cold voice, "Blood, sacrifice a god. These mummies may look honest, but who knows how many Taoists they have sacrificed? Since the beginning of the Aeon, they have killed countless fellow Taoists on this pure land in the blood sea calamity eye. They deserve to die 1,000 times. No wonder there is a conflict between the fugitive faction and the survivalist faction. If we come into contact with some of the survivalist faction, we will definitely find some clues. There should be a group of Taoists who know about their dirty deeds. What about those old monsters on Divine Turtle Island?" Fan Wujia said hesitantly, "These mummies probably don't treat the other Taoists as their own. If they follow these people, they will not end up well. Do you think they don't know?" Yuan Yu laughed coldly. "They have been with the mummies for the longest time, and they are all wily old foxes. Do you really think they don't know anything? Are they smart? The mummies want to use them as sacrifices and cannon fodder. So why wouldn't they want to use the mummies to escape from this place? They are just using each other. They probably have a tacit understanding in their hearts, and they are not afraid of falling out with the mummies." Fan Wujia frowned and said, "Then who do you think is more cunning? Those mummies have schemed against the Aeon. What didn't they think of?" Yuan Yu laughed coldly. "I dare say that those old monsters didn't even think of the mummies worshipping blood sea god. Now that the mummies have control over King Poya's body, they don't even have the chance to fall out with them. If they do, they will be suppressed. But those old monsters are not to be trifled with. We humans have the most heart acupoints, and we are the most cunning and sinister. The mummies have been trapped here since the Aeon, and their brains have long been turned off. If they underestimate those old monsters, they will suffer a great loss. But those mummies are too well prepared. I still don't think they can win. Right now, we are flowing through King Poya's veins, and the blood is flowing to the heart. Next, we will pass through King Poya's heart acupoint, and the mummies will use this blood to make King Poya's heart beat again, speeding up the circulation of blood and the resurrection of the corpse. When that happens, we will have a battle at the heart, and those mummies will use the heart of Dara to gain an unparalleled advantage. We have to think of a way to not let them win too easily." Yuan Yu had calmed down, and he said with a smile, "We still have a chance. The Xian Ming Bone Thorn, the White Bone Mountain. It has a boundless murderous energy, and it contains the Xian Ming true water that can freeze a sea of blood. If we can control it, we will have a powerful trump card. When that time comes, if the mummies want to attack us by force, we will just stab this thorn into their heart." Yuan Yu gritted his teeth fiercely, his face full of ruthlessness, as if he was ready to risk everything. But Fan Wu Jie shook his head and said, "Impossible. The Xian Ming Bone Thorn is extremely powerful. Even if we spend a few periods of time, we may not be able to control it, and the mummies will not let go of this weakness. When we struck the White Bone Mountain, I felt that they had done something to the bone thorn. With just the strength of the two of us, do you really think that we can touch the mummy's arrangement of the immeasurable tribulation? Who said there are only two of us?" Yuan Yu looked up and smiled. "Have you forgotten? In order to break out of this mess, there are many big fish in this muddy water that the survivors of destruction have not expected." Fan Wujia had a relaxed expression on his face as he looked at the group of fiend monarchs who were trying to intercept them on the white bone fiend ships. When he saw the 3 patriarchs on the deck, he squeezed his facial muscles and growled ferociously, "You're just unlucky to have bumped into me. I didn't expect to see people in this blood river. In a hurry, we followed the survivors of destruction to escape, so we didn't bring anything with us. It's good to rob them." "Yes, yes," an old devil echoed. "We need cannon fodder to scout ahead. Let's tie these 2 up." At this time, Yuan Yu suddenly jumped out with a face full of smiles. Brother Shui Tu, Brother Wuxing. We are all on the same side. We are all on the same side. Fan Wu Jia also said fearlessly, That's right. Stop acting. Your acting is terrible. The bloody massacre demon monarch, the lifeless cult master, the burning soul demon monarch, and the other big shots and old monsters of the demon sect were speechless. The lifeless cult master grabbed Yuan Yu and ran to the side asking, What happened? Aren't you a spy? Have you been exposed, or what? Yuan Yu smiled bitterly. After communicating with you many times behind the back of a Tao seat of time, who can guarantee that we won't be exposed? We've been exposed. The leader of the lifeless cult shouted, We've been exposed. Brothers, let's use force. One after another, the old devils drew out their demonic weapons, divine fires, magic treasures, and divine abilities. With a whoosh, they grabbed their knives and prepared to attack. Yuan Yu hurriedly stopped them. Wait, I haven't finished. It's not necessarily a bad thing to be exposed. He stood in the middle of Fan Wu Jia and the group of Taoist monarchs of the Fiend Path and tried to mediate, after my earnest and well-meaning persuasion. I pointed out to little brother Fan Wu Jia the danger of dying in the depths of the bottomless ruins. Then I've explained in detail how we, the Fiend Path, value loyalty and reason, never abandoning a single member. Little brother Fan has finally come to his senses, abandoned the light for the dark, and is willing to join our devil Tao sect. Now that we have worshipped the two-demon ancestor, drank the blood wine, and swore the heart demon oath, we are one family. We are all brothers, all brothers. Old monster Shi, put down the blood-dissipating demon saber. Little brother Wu Sheng, put down the white bone departed soul sword, and brother Shui Tu, you've even used the 9 heavens 10 earths soul sealing curse. Are you trying to perish together? Listen to me, everyone. The danger in the depths of the ultimate is far more terrifying than we imagined. Since that Fan kid has abandoned the light for the dark side, we should unite as one and kill those evil annihilation demon disciples first. Then we'll take care of those bald donkeys of the Buddha sects and leave only us brothers behind. The meat will be left in the pot. The land of Dara isn't a fortuitous encounter that can't be shared. Let's find the land of Dara first, then use our own methods, right? How about this? Little brother Fan, swear a blood oath to the demon ancestor of the river Styx. Then we'll swear the heart demon oath together, and this matter will be over. From now on, we will be one family. Hearing Yuan Yu's shameless words, Fan Wu Jia's expression changed. At this time, the group of devil monarchs suddenly surrounded them with smiles on their faces as they secretly cast out the divine abilities and magical treasures they were most proud of in their lives, ready to launch a shocking attack at any time. Immediately, Fan Wu Jia smiled innocently and cupped his hands together, saying, How can I refuse the kindness of my brothers? If I hesitate, wouldn't I be a traitor of the devil Tao? Come, come, come. I will drip a blood oath and swear the heart demon oath together with my brothers. Fan Wu Jia took off his sleeve, revealing the 8-armed god tattoo on his arm. He patted his chest and said, Since I have the tattoo of the Blood Sea Devil scripture, I am a member of the Devil Tao. The 8-armed demon ancestor has taught me this, and I will never forget the brotherhood. Brothers, I will join you. Immediately he cut open his right palm, faced the blood sea, and dripped a blood oath. I will support the Devil Tao, abandon the light for the dark, and work together with my brothers from the Devil Tao to honor the slaughtering demon ancestor and build a supreme devil land. After the oath was made, the group of old devils came forward and fought with Fan Wu Jia happily, as if there was no ill will between them. Fan Wu Jia was smiling on the surface, but he was sighing in his heart. Looking at the dark red blood river under his feet, he thought helplessly, In the end, I still fell into the Devil Tao. When those righteous young men fell into the Devil Tao, was it similar to the situation now? He raised his palm and looked at it. Although there was a wound there, it was not his own blood that flowed out. Yuan Yu used the object bestowal spell to replace the main body of the blood oath with the giant koan in his sleeve. Fan Wu Jia did not make a blood oath. It was just that the devil Dao had an additional blood sea giant koan as a guardian divine beast. It did not matter what Fan Wu Jia thought. In any case, he was quite willing. After making the blood oath, there was no barrier between the giant koan and the blood sea, and its essence also shifted further towards the blood sea demon. Although Fan Wu Jia convinced himself that it was just a game, he knew in his heart that he had taken another step towards the devil Dao. In front of him was a bottomless abyss, and he had no way out. Everyone, join hands and capture the Xian Ming bone thorn, Yuan Yu said in a low voice. He had lured another righteous young man to fall into the devil Dao, and he did not feel good in his heart. However, the demon ancestor was urging him to perform. My fellow Taoists die, but not me. I have no other choice, Yuan Yu said, helplessly. We have countless people who are proficient in the blood sea, Azura, White Bone, Yin Soul, Evil Spirit, and other devil Dao. If we work together, I do not believe that we cannot erase the tricks of a group of destruction demon disciples and stray dogs. Everyone, work together and refine that white bone divine mountain into a peerless white bone devil ship. We can cross this boundless blood sea and add another supreme treasure to our devil Dao. I have a mental secret technique, the heaven and earth great God searching hand. It can lock onto that white bone divine mountain and the Xian Ming bone thorn. Someone added, I also have a great shaman sacrificial art that can awaken the remnant soul of the ancestral wizard in the bone thorn and worship it to become a god. The old devil of the shaman cult also interrupted. The Brahma soul demon monarch said proudly, Fellow Taoists, let's summon the fire of the 9 underworlds with me and ignite the Xian Ming bone thorn. The boundless, baleful energy contained in the bone thorn will be turned into baleful fire. It can soften the godly bones and shape them. Yuan Yu also said, I have a grafting technique that can destroy a devil treasure and inject the restrictive magic within it into another devil treasure. It can immediately steal the hard work of thousands of years of sacrificial refinement. Let's do it this way. We will destroy the white bone devil ship and inject the restrictive magic into the softened Xian Ming bone thorn. Then the old patriarch will worship the ancestral wizard and draw out the Xian Ming true water to erase the ambush of those dried corpses. Then we will refine the Xian Ming bone thorn into a peerless devil treasure. The space inside King Poya's corpse was enormous. It was like a world of its own. The various organs contained Dara's astonishing magic power. It was mixed with the magic power of the great Tao of destruction and turned into all kinds of inconceivable natural tribulations: earth, water, wind, fire, and other external phenomena. Entering it by mistake was the same as entering a terrifying land of death. Only the old subordinates of King Poya could use their blood to awaken the organs inside King Poya's corpse. Only then would they be able to collect all kinds of fortunes hidden inside. The group of old monsters had benefited a lot from following them, but none of them showed the slightest bit of joy. This was because they could only watch as the dried corpses recovered bit by bit with the help of Dara's treasures. Their auras were much stronger than before by more than 1,000 times. How could they not know that the benefits they gained now would be repaid with interest in the future? After venturing through all kinds of divine treasures and obtaining the countless fortunes King Poya had prepared for them, the dried corpses could no longer be called dried corpses. Now they were all alive. They were covered in hideous scales and had 3 heads and 6 arms. They looked hideous, but their bodies and battle prowess were indeed astonishing. These destruction devil followers finally came to the most important divine treasure in Dara's body, the heart. King Poya's heart was like an irregular planet. It looked dead and withered on the outside, and its surface was covered in countless irregular cracks. Each crack was like a huge canyon, and several arteries led to the heart. It was as huge as a bottomless abyss. The destruction devil followers looked at the planet-sized devil heart, and their bodies trembled in excitement. The leader of the devils cheered, "Wonderful! King Poya's heart is perfectly preserved. Once the blood comes, King Poya's heart will start beating again. The blood and divine soul we offer will be enough for King Poya's divine body to attack with all its might 3 times. At that time, who can stop our great plan? Sacrifice the blood and soul. Let King Poya's blood and soul return." He could not suppress the excitement in his heart. He grabbed an old Dao lord next to him and opened his chest. Nine-Headed's face changed, and he quickly retreated to stand with the other old monsters to protect himself. He said, "Poya Moqo, what are you doing?" Poya Moqo laughed madly. "Of course, we are sacrificing my king. Didn't you want to escape? Use the pure yang blood of the golden immortal Dao Lord to guide us in the blood and let King Poya's heart start beating again. We only need 9 golden immortals. You have so many people, so what if we sacrifice 9 pieces of trash?" Poya Moqo squeezed the heart in her hand, and golden blood worms surged out of the withered heart and fell into the blood sea below. The golden blood seemed to ignite the blood, and the blood that flowed into the devil heart regained a bit of pure yang qi. The devil heart was nourished by the blood, and it slowly regained its color. That bit of pure yang qi caused the demon heart to tremble slightly. Poya Moqo was overjoyed. With a wave of her hand, countless Azura demon generals charged towards the old monsters. They only chose 8 of the weakest old monsters. Although the other old monsters were shocked, they did not stop them. Only the 9-headed old monster and a few of the oldest old monsters knew that they could not tolerate this anymore. If they did not resist, they would not have another chance. Although these old monsters cherished their lives, they were not lacking in decisiveness. The 9 old monsters immediately attacked. The 8 sarcomas below their necks bared their fangs and brandished their claws. Their eyes shot out a resplendent divine rainbow toward Poya Moqo, unleashing a powerful divine ability that shook the void. Poya Moqo roared, and with a black hand that looked like a ghost claw, she grabbed at 9-headed. The ghost claw swiped downwards as if it could grab the sun and the moon, and crashed into the divine rainbow. It crushed the divine rainbow, but it was only pushed back a little. It did not even hurt his skin. The other old monsters tried to stop him, but there were also other powerful Azura demon generals who tried to stop them. In front of the ghost claw, 9-headed, who was a direct descendant of a Khanate life form, felt his soul tremble. A Khanate life form that was slowly recovering was unimaginably terrifying. 9-headed made up his mind. He was ready to burn his life force, to burn everything he had, to launch a desperate attack. Not to kill this terrifying Azura demon leader, but to turn himself into ashes and not fall into their hands. Boom! However, at the critical moment of life and death, a loud sound accompanied by surging divine blood surged from behind them. A huge white-boned ship that looked like a divine turtle sailed over from behind. The shape of the white-boned ship was strange. The bow of the ship was very narrow, but the stern was abnormally wide. It looked like a wedge. The godly ship was accompanied by a monstrous, murderous aura, freezing everything in its path. Even the gods and the living blood were frozen, becoming stiff and sluggish. A group of demon Dao monarchs stood at the bow of the ship, charging towards the divine Turtle Island where the Azura demon leader was. Shocking divine arts and mystic instruments tore the blood river apart, pounding on Poya King's demon heart, creating loud bangs that shook the chest of Dara's corpse. It was as if the sky was beating a drum, pointing the way for everyone in the corpse. Chaos Demon Dao, remnants of destruction. You want to release the destruction demon ancestor. You deserve to die. We, the disciples of the slaughtered demon ancestor, will not allow this. Even if I have to sacrifice my blood, I will kill you all here." The blood-soaked demon monarch said righteously, "If you want to destroy the world, you have to ask for our permission first." Old Patriarch shouted, "We, the demon Tao, are the backbone of all living beings, supporting a home for all living beings. Shamans are protectors. Devils are freedom. Shamans are protectors of all living beings, protectors of freedom. Killing is saving lives, carrying out the great Tao of slaughter, cleaning up the karma of the universe, upholding the killing calamity, not distinguishing between good and evil. The killing Tao is merciless, cleaning up all living beings. Tribulations are selfless, operating yin and yang. Fellow Taoists of destruction, please face the tribulations." Killing cult leader said coldly. Fan Wu Jia hid at the back, a little secretive. The Fan clan's third ancestor avoided him, not even daring to raise his head. Yuan Yu pulled his sleeve and said in a low voice, "What are you doing? Why are you hiding? If people see me with you, how am I supposed to live in the righteous path? Also, you are from the demon Tao, shouting a bunch of slogans for righteousness. Is that okay? Of course we have to shout when we do good things. The slaughtered demon ancestor taught us that we must publicize the good things we do. What's wrong with saying something nice?" Yuan Yu said, "You are still too young. What about when we do bad things?" Fan Wu Jia was unconvinced. "I don't see you guys covering your faces. When we do bad things, of course we have to shout. Why are we reasoning with the righteous path? We are from the demon Tao, we should do bad things. If we don't do that, are we still from the demon Tao? Ha ha ha. We have to be arrogant with righteous words. Don't rigidly adhere to so-called benevolence, righteousness, and morality. We are from the demon Tao. Whatever we do is what we should do, right? First, we have to lower our limits a little, so that no one will have any expectations of us. Then one day, when we do something with a higher limit, we have to shout louder. That way, we will leave a deeper impression on people, and the impact will be greater. A bad person doing a good thing is easier to be forgiven than a good person doing a bad thing. Who knows? We might be able to clear our names." Yuan Yu laughed. Fan Wu Jia face-bombed at this shameless logic, then secretly took out the cosmic light true water and flourishing mortal dust divine sand, and gave the group of Azura demons a good beating. Chapter 1262. The sudden attack on the Azura demons only caused a moment of confusion. Nine-headed old monster and the other old monsters took the opportunity to retreat to the Xian Ming bone ship. Unexpectedly, the Xue Tu King did not trust them. He shouted, "If you want to surrender, please bind yourselves in the Xian Ming ancient ship. If you want to escape, just leave now." Nine-headed old monster and the others hesitated for a moment. Some volunteered to enter the Xian Ming bone ship to be suppressed, while others flew out to escape. Pa Yamakuo sneered, still thinking of escaping. With a cold snort, the few demon lords who were escaping and the few old monsters who could not escape to the Xian Ming bone ship in time had Tao patterns carved by the destructive power of the calamity eye of the blood sea appear on their bodies. The Tao patterns intertwined and turned into a shriveled bird claw covered in green feathers. It pierced into their hearts. The tattoo-like Tao patterns intertwined and formed a green-black ghost hand that pierced into their chests. Most of the old monsters made a prompt decision. Some burned their Dharma bodies, turning their primordial spirits into bloody smoke that entered the Xian Ming bone ship. Some split themselves in half and turned their lower bodies into bloody flames that burned towards the Azura demons. Their upper bodies used the blood escape technique to escape. However, there were still nearly 10 old monsters who were too deep in the Azura demons' plot or who could not break free from the restriction in time. Their hearts were dug out by the ghost hand. The golden pure yang heart blood instantly sacrificed the god hidden in the blood sea below. The frozen god that was frozen by the Xian Ming cold wave received the pure yang qi and instantly broke free from the Xian Ming true water's restriction. It brought along a monstrous amount of blood and poured into the giant demon heart. The golden and red divine blood seemed to have watered the land that had been dry for countless years. As Dara's demon heart slowly recovered, Yuan Yu pulled Fan Wu Jie and retreated. His expression changed. Thump! The giant black demon heart that was glowing with mystic gold beat slightly. Dara, who was besieging the Azura demons from all four directions, felt that the frequency of his heartbeat was instantly disrupted, and he had no choice but to beat along with the heartbeat. His avatar's chi activity was instantly disrupted, and his magic power and divine abilities were instantly thrown into disorder. On the other hand, the dried corpses and the other Azura demons all had their blood energy greatly boosted after their hearts beat along with the demon's heart. His aura seemed to fuse into one, and with the reinforcement from Poya Dara's divine treasure, his aura instantly rose by 10 times. Thump! The demon heart throbbed once more, this time even more forcefully. There were already some demon monarchs whose auras were in disarray. Their originally perfect chi activity had suddenly been disrupted by their own wildly beating hearts. Forcibly attacking was not an ordinary feeling of discomfort. Many people's originally powerful magic power and divine abilities instantly fell to a relatively low level, only having 60% of their original power. On the other hand, the power of the Azura demon's attacks instantly increased by 10 times, and it was still rising. Thump! There were already people who couldn't resist coughing up blood. The big shots of the devil path all had pale faces, and their auras were unstable. Those who were slightly weaker even had their internal organs injured, and blood with pieces of their organs seeped out of the corners of their mouths. Yuan Yu hurriedly transformed into an Azura and said in a low voice, "The bodies of us humans are different from the divine bodies of Azura. If we were next to Poya King's heart, we would be disrupted. Now that I've transformed into an Azura, there should be no problem." Thump! Yuan Yu coughed up a foot of blood, and his face was pale. He no longer dared to maintain his Azura form, so he pulled Fan Wu Jie and ran towards the ship. As he ran, he shouted, "Brothers, there's no way we can fight this battle next to Poya King's devil heart. The enemy is troublesome, so let's run. We'll deal with them after we leave this place." The Shuetu King also waved his hand and said, "Let's go. We, the Devil Path, will not care about the gains and losses of this place." The group of Devil Path leaders retreated as they fought. They retreated to the Xianming bone ship, unleashed the Xianming frost wave, and froze the space-time around them as they prepared to retreat. The Azura demons were not willing to let them go. With the help of Dara's blood essence, the Azura demons' innate divine bodies grew exponentially. Poya Matso's lower body turned into the body of a venomous dragon, covered in black scales and bone spikes, while his upper body had 4 heads and 6 arms, and was over 1,000 feet tall. As he waved his 6 arms, the calamity power and devilish light crisscrossed, shattering the void, and with a flip of his palm, a black hole appeared. There was also a strange mummy that had never recovered a bit of its blood essence and was in a weakened state. It unleashed 9 great calamity powers, sacrificing itself to be destroyed by the great Tao of destruction, and unleashed the embryonic form of the ultimate Tao solution, the heavens' destruction tribulation. A destructive power shattered all the divine abilities of the group of demon monarchs, and the powerful spirit treasures and demonic items were all shattered in the light of the tribulation. Their owners vomited mouthfuls of blood, and in an instant, dozens of powerful demonic treasures were destroyed. Even the Xianming bone spur, a postnatal spirit treasure with an astonishing origin and an extremely high intrinsic quality, was on the verge of collapsing in the light of the heavens' destruction tribulation. Yuan Yu roared. The ancestral shaman is also a living being of the Tai Chi era, and he is restrained by the calamity power of the destruction tribulation. Other than the relics of the chaos fiend gods and chaos spirit treasures, nothing can resist the great Tao of destruction. Everyone retreat. The Dharma destruction tribulation. The Tao monarchs could feel the great Tao fading away, and the foundations of all spells and divine abilities were shaking. The vitality destruction tribulation. The foundation of vitality was deteriorating, and the origin of all things in the void was being eroded. The matter-void tribulation. The space was declining, and the void was about to collapse. The time decay tribulation. The time was no longer stable, and the flow of time was greatly accelerated. The void liberation tribulation. The destruction doomsday tribulation. The slaughter tribulation. The illusion inversion tribulation. The 9 great tribulations evolved into the final Tao solution. The mummy that launched this attack had been destroyed, but the great Tao of destruction was already in its embryonic form. The Asura demon used his demon heart to mobilize King Poya's remaining magic power to push the final Tao solution to take shape. The group of demon monarchs was in despair. All postnatal objects are restrained by the great Tao of destruction too much. The destruction demon ancestor is indeed the enemy of all living beings. Fellow Taoists, if we don't fight to the death, we will have no hope. The killing cult leader roared. When the nest is overturned, no egg can remain intact. The witch cult's old demon said sternly, even if we fight to the death to make the great Tao of destruction completely lose balance, they won't be able to control this terrible power, and in the end, they will destroy themselves. Even if I have to risk my old bones, I'll make the ultimate enlightenment go out of control and destroy these madmen and the grand Luo corpses here. Old demon monarch, go. The Shui Tu cult leader urged the Xianming bone ship with all his might and said loudly, "My fellow Taoists, and I will not forget you." The witch cult's old demon sighed. Witchcraft is protection. Even if we fall to become demons, we are still witchcraft. I sacrifice blood to evil gods, slaughter the innocent, oppress my people, despise the weak, cruel, bloody, barbaric. But even so, I am the backbone of the human race. Witchcraft is the faith that bitterly seeks to survive in the most difficult times of the race. Witchcraft is the era of reverence and struggle, submission and resistance, barbarism and civilization. Cut the crap. Yuan Yu shouted. It's almost too late. Can't you let me prepare first? The old demon monarch roared. Go ahead if you can. The witch cult's old demon monarch's body burned with an inextinguishable black flame. The swaying heavenly fire burned his body and soul, and blood smoke rose slowly. An indescribably ferocious demon god appeared in the embryonic form of the final Tao solution. He had 1,000 hands and 9 heads, and each hand had 1,000 eyes. When he stretched out his hands, he could cover the sun and moon and cover the heavens. He was the embodiment of Tao, and he could destroy and destroy everything. Pu Moq's calm face changed for the first time. F***CK. Yuan Yu was unable to suppress the shock in his heart as he shuddered. This time it wasn't an act. Even though he was a grand heavenly immortal, he couldn't help but shudder at the sight of this fiend god. The old man is a ruthless man. The witch cult has been in decline for so many years, but he's actually this crazy? I feel that the destruction evil is not a concern, but the witch cult is scary. The Shui Tu King's face turned pale as he screamed, "Destruction, evil god!" In the name of Ro, demon ancestor, the witch cult is even crazier than the Asura demons. Who is the destruction evil? You actually worshipped the destruction demon ancestor as a god. You actually bypassed the Ro demon ancestor and directly communicated with the symbol of Tao of destruction, the destruction evil god. Old witch, you actually sacrificed yourself to the destruction evil god and gave birth to the purest destruction evil god in the final Tao solution. Are you going to drag us down with you? The demon Tao didn't care about the Asura demons anymore. He urged the Xianming white-boned ship with all his might, wanting to escape without a trace. What a joke! The great Tao of destruction did not recognize anyone. It was still all right to summon the destruction demon ancestor Ro, as at least he still had some kinship with her. However, if he summoned a pure destruction demon god, that person would even kill him in a frenzy. After the destruction demon ancestor Ro destroyed the world, if he did not want to die, he would definitely split himself into a destruction demon god and kill his main body, completely destroying it. After the great Tao of destruction used Ro's hand to destroy all things, it would kill the donkey once it was out of the millstone, and even the host would be destroyed. Only the Wuji born from the great Tao of nihility could exist forever and not be restrained by the great Tao of destruction. Currently, the limitless great Tao was countered by the great Tao of chaos. The great Tao of chaos was countered by the great Tao of Taiji. The great Tao of Taiji was countered by the great Tao of destruction. And finally, the great Tao of nothingness, limitless great Tao, countered the great Tao of destruction, forming a primordial cycle. In order to transcend this cycle, River Styx developed the great Tao of the ruins of end, accommodating destruction and nothingness, and nurturing the infinity that was not restrained by chaos. Poya Mokuo was a little crazy. The human race was indeed the most dangerous race that courted death. We only wanted to release the demon ancestor Ro, but the human race directly worshipped a destruction demon god that did not recognize anyone. In the end, who was the madman that wanted to destroy the universe? They kept saying that the shaman was protecting, but then they turned around and sacrificed themselves to nurture a destruction demon god. Was there something wrong? Did the human race have some misunderstanding about the concept of protecting? Destroying everything, dying together with the universe to protect the human race? If you dare to touch the human race, I will destroy myself in front of you. Poya Mokuo's expression was a mess. The demon Tao could escape, but he could not. This was the heart of the king of his race, and also where his hope lay. When the destruction demon god was nurtured, what would happen to King Poya's body? What would happen to the hope of the immeasurable calamity? What if the destruction demon god grew and devoured Ro instead? Were they idiots? Just when both sides were in an awkward situation because of the shaman's idea, a call came from the sky. Ajadi, Shwe Tu King. Dozens of shiny bald heads, sitting on a broken bowl, tore through the void and descended. Master Fajing, who was in the lead, said solemnly, "The remnants of Rahu have committed perverse acts. They actually want to summon the demon god of destruction to destroy the world. They deserve to be punished. Now that the incarnation of the destruction demon god has been nurtured, why don't we work together to stop this calamity?" Shwe Tu King said seriously, "Of course. Protecting the primordial universe is the mission of the demon Tao. The sins of the destruction demon god are unforgivable. Our righteous Tao and demon Tao should work together to kill them. The remnants of Ro, everyone wants to kill you." Yuan Yu whispered to Fan Wujia, "Now you see. Without a big shot to protect you, all kinds of shit will be put on your head." Poya Mokuo couldn't help but refute. The destruction demon god was summoned by you yourselves. We only unleashed the ultimate Tao solution. We only wanted to summon a clone of Ro demon ancestor, so that the destruction demon Tao can return to the universe. We didn't plan to destroy the world. Shut up, Shwe Tu King shouted righteously. The remnants of Ro, don't try to argue. Bodhisattva, killing sect leader, also said righteously, "Why are you still talking to the destruction demon god? Let's attack together." Great Master Fa Jing put his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. Then he took out a purple gold alms bowl. The mouth of the alms bowl flew towards the final embryonic form of the Tao solution that was being nurtured by the incarnation of the demon god of destruction. It wrapped around the chaotic sea of Tao solution that was full of destructive tribulation power and set off monstrous destructive tribulation power toward the Azura demon clan and the great Luo demon heart behind them. Only innate spirit treasures that were not in the Tai Chi would not be suppressed by the great Tao of destruction. The old sorcerer is really cunning. Yuan Yu said in a low voice. He already knew that the Buddhists were hiding in the shadows, waiting for both sides to suffer, so he decided to make a big fuss and force them to make a move. Moreover, he has reached a terrifying balance with the Asura demons. Now that everyone has the great Tao of destruction that is out of their control, after this, the Asura demons will lose one of their trump cards. Speaking of which, we are the ones who have profited. Yuan Yu analyzed, the Buddhists have the innate spirit treasures in their hands, and now that everyone has their reservations, it won't be hard for them to destroy the incarnation of the great Tao of destruction. Let's take this chance to get away. Let's get out of here first. Fan Wu Jie said in surprise. Aren't we going to take care of the destruction demon gods? I'm just saying you really believe it. Yuan Yu smiled slyly. The incarnation of the great Tao of destruction can still be taken care of now. But if we push them too far, they will use dozens of dried corpses to unleash dozens of ultimate Tao solutions, abandon the Poya avatar, and control the body of Dara to unleash one ultimate Tao solution, turning this place into chaotic destruction. How powerful will the incarnation of the destruction demon god be? When that happens, everyone will die. Those baldies from the Buddhists will never do something like that. The demonic Tao joined forces to summon the Xianming bone ship, and with the help of the Buddhist Tao's purple golden alms bowl, they destroyed the incarnation of the destruction demon god, and at the same time gave the Asura demons a deep grudge, breaking their hearts. In the end, it was Poya Mokuo who fought with all her might that forced both sides to retreat. The demonic Tao retreated with the Xianming bone ship, and the Buddhists snatched some fortunes from the Asura demons and even rescued 2 people. Only the Asura demons had suffered a great loss. If Yuan Yu hadn't dragged the 2 sides into the trap, with the Poya avatar and the ultimate Tao solution as their trump cards, they wouldn't be afraid even if the entire Blood Sea Eye of Calamity attacked them together. But the Buddhist Tao and demonic Tao's accumulation was too great. A mere remnant of Ro was far from being comparable to them. The demonic Tao could use the shaman cult's leader as a blood sacrifice to destroy the demon god, and the Buddhists brought out an innate spirit treasure. It wasn't that the remnant of Ro wasn't good at scheming, but that the 2 sides had broken the rules. The white bone ship followed the blood circulation inside Poya's body and arrived near the Yongquan meridian. During this time, a group of demonic Tao cultivators manipulated the power of Poya Ji's body, turning it into countless tribulations to obstruct them. But the demonic Tao's accumulation was deep, and they managed to get through it without any mishap. Fan Wu Jie finally caught a glimpse of the terrifying power of one of the demonic Tao's overlords. These demonic Tao's overlords all had many trump cards up their sleeves. Even if some of them were weaker than him, they still had some methods that could threaten him. And the most famous overlords were all stronger than him. It was then that Fan Wu Jie adjusted his attitude. Although the innate Tao seed was amazing, these demonic Tao cultivators that had been passed down from ancient times were also unfathomable. When they arrived at the Yongquan Blood Sea under Poya's feet, everyone gasped. A mountain of white bones, tens of thousands of times taller than the bottom of the Blood Sea, pierced into Piaji's feet, almost piercing through his feet. Great Xue Tu King. The Xue Tu King scratched his bald head and said, "Is there a witch ancestor's body buried at the bottom of the Blood Sea?" What did Poya King see in the Blood Sea? Did she really see the Xue Tu King's body? Was the Xue Tu King's body not injured by his halberd and left behind a broken bone spike? Did the slaughter demon ancestor raise the Blood Sea and drown this place to hide this secret? The escape route was right in front of them, but the demonic Tao cultivators weren't so eager to get out. All their distracting thoughts were shaken by the giant bone spike. The passage to escape from this place was naturally this gigantic white bone divine mountain. If it was before the boundless ocean of Xianming true water and the black wave of cold that froze the world would make everyone feel numb. But now they had captured a Xianming bone thorn and refined it into a Xianming bone ship. It wouldn't be a problem to cross this Xianming pure water sea. After traveling for 60 years, the group finally escaped from the Blood Sea. They followed the Xianming bone spike and went deeper into the ultimate. As the White Bone Mountain became thicker and thicker, a few more White Bone Mountains appeared in the opposite direction. The demonic Tao's overlords became more and more afraid. The more they looked, the more it looked like the burial place of the Xianming pure water sea. Finally, they came to a demonic land. The cold waves of evil qi turned into an ocean and drowned the White Bone Mountain. They didn't see the Xianming pure water sea's body, and they didn't dare to look. They would die if they knew this secret. Chapter 1263. The crowd heaved a sigh of relief after they left the mysterious White Bone Divine Mountain behind and left the evil sea far behind. If the Grand Wizard Xianming was really buried there, then it would be a calamity that would pierce through the heavens. Looking around, it was a barren, demonic land. It was unknown which world had fallen into the ultimate and transformed into the wreckage. Twisted, withered trees were everywhere, and the tangled branches looked like dragons and snakes. They were about the size of giant pythons. Before this place fell into the ultimate, it must have been a sacred forest. There was a thick aura of destruction lingering around the tall, withered trees. It was unknown how many years this place had been in the returning ruins, but these trees were still tenaciously surviving, and there were even traces of divinity left. Before they fell into the returning ruins, these strange trees must have been very powerful, and they must have had divine roots. But now, only the remains of the spirit root, holy tree, were left. The great Tao of destruction had distorted the form of these spirit roots, and they had transformed into a kind of demonic, withered form that looked like dragons and snakes. The leader of the corpse sect was a little scared, and he whispered to everyone, "This place looks like a burial ground." "Leave this demonic land, quickly," the Shui Tu King urged. "I think I can hear these trees crying." Fan Wu Jie shuddered as he said. He walked over to a fallen tree stump that was already half broken. The roots that were exposed on the ground looked like a huge, black, poisonous dragon. The dead tree was huge, and more than half of it was buried under the black, demonic soil. The part that was exposed on the ground looked like a small hill. Fan Wu Jie brushed away the dust on the stump, revealing the densely packed growth rings on its surface. Fan Wu Jie roughly counted the growth rings on it, and immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. There were probably tens of thousands of growth rings, and this was only the part that was exposed to the surface. More than half of the cross-section was still submerged in the ground, and this was a relatively small strange tree. The spirit root holy tree does not use ordinary years. The ancient underworld holy tree takes 500 years as its spring, 500 years as its autumn, and 2,000 years as its year. Meanwhile, the legendary Great Chun Divine Tree takes 8,000 years as spring, 8,000 years as autumn, and 32,000 years as a year. Fan Wu Jie felt that this place was even stranger, and it made his hair stand on end. These strange trees were able to withstand the tribulation power of destruction for countless years without being destroyed. I presume their origins are extraordinary. It has lived for at least hundreds of thousands of years. How many years does a divine tree take for a year? Based on the underworld spirit trees era, 2,000 years is a year. Taoist Yuan Yu pinched his fingers and calculated. He clicked his tongue and said, "These divine trees have lived for at least hundreds of millions of years. That's why he fell into the ultimate with this demonic land. Let me take a look." Shui Tu King pushed them away and looked at the tree's growth rings. Shui Tu King's face darkened. He placed his hand on the trunk of the tree, and the rough bark cracked like black scales. It felt like the corpse of a real dragon. Shui Tu King's legs dug into the ground, and he forcefully pulled the fallen tree out of the ground. Everyone rushed forward and counted the growth rings on the tree with their fingers. 598,326 rounds. Soon, someone counted the number of growth rings, and he said in a cold voice, "I saw the changes in the climate of the prehistoric era." He pointed to the outermost rings and said, "There are Tao marks of the 9 heavens weak water here, and the rings are softer and wider. This means that the tree was soaked in some innate true water that seems to be the 9 heavens weak water. It grew faster, but the wood was damaged." Gong Gong touched Mount Bujo in anger. A great flood from the heavenly river. Everyone present shuddered at the same time. Oh my God! How can everything here be related to the earth-shattering events that happened in the untainted land? Yuan Yu muttered in a low voice, using the time when Gong Gong furiously touched Bujo Mountain, when the divine tree withered. The bloody-soaked Demon King calculated a few growth rings and found that the few relatively broad, paler rings were already very close to the outer skin of the tree. After the flood, the prehistoric era was not far away from breaking up. Does this mean that when the prehistoric era was broken, these trees might have fallen into the ultimate and withered away by the great Tao of destruction? Someone else pointed at the denser ring, which was about a few thousand rings, and said, "This ring is very dense, which means that the divine tree grew very slowly at that time. The climate was very cold, and it lasted for a very long time. The ring seems to be engraved with a Tao mark that is very similar to the Xianming true water. This kind of primordial Tao," that person trembled and said, "it might be the ancient underworld era, the cold ancient era." "How long is the cold ancient era?" the killing hierarch asked with a dry voice. Everyone counted with their fingers, and Yuan Yu answered quickly. After the prehistoric era was broken, the sun, moon, and stars changed greatly, and the Milky Way was broken. The time sequence and calendar changed greatly, and the time of the prehistoric era was different from that of the heavens. Currently, the time of the heavens is based on the Big Dipper era, which means that the ancient underworld era is about 6,000 yuan hui. Everyone immediately looked down and counted the rings. About 6,000 rings. This tree uses 1 yuan hui as a year. This is 590,000. About 600,000 yuan hui. That's 72 billion years. Hearing this number, everyone's legs went numb. Looking at the sparse branches, or the twisted black ancient trees, looking at the deathly silent demonic land, they felt as if someone was pointing a knife at their back. This was a divine land that had existed for at least 72 billion years, but now it had become a deathly place. How many incredible spirit roots and divine trees grew here, and how many ancient secrets were buried here. When this divine tree was still alive, what kind of divine light shone from its branches and leaves? What kind of majestic form and strong life force did it have when it was alive? What kind of divine land was this divine land before it fell into the returning ruins? Why did it fall into the returning ruins, a land of no return, and in the end all of its good fortune was destroyed, leaving behind only a deathly silent demonic land? What kind of great terror was buried here? Woo woo woo. At this time, Fan Wu Jie turned his head stiffly, and he seemed to hear a cry that transcended time and space. The voice was neither male nor female. It sounded like the chanting of Buddha, as if a mighty being was weeping blood and chanting scriptures. The blurred scriptures and the cry came from the depths of time, and only Fan Wu Jie could hear it. Fan Wu Jie quietly pulled on the corner of Yuan Yu's robe. He leaned over and whispered, "Do you hear the cry coming from the depths of time? It's right beside this tree." Yuan Yu's hair stood on end, and he whispered back, "Don't scare me. You'll die if you scare me in this place." "I'm not scaring anyone. I just heard this sound." Fan Wu Jie gulped nervously. The blurred scripture chanting and the cry became more and more obvious, as if someone was crying and chanting scriptures. The Sanskrit scriptures were blurred in the first place, and with the addition of the sobbing, it made it difficult for Fan Wu Jie to tell what the voice was chanting. He felt that there was something in the depths of time walking towards him. Yuan Yu saw that Fan Wu Jie's condition was not right, and he hurriedly pulled him back, but by this time there was already a layer of light between them. Fan Wu Jie watched as the withered divine tree stood up in front of his eyes and once again rooted itself into the devil's soil. It was as if time and space were flowing backwards, and the divine tree was slowly reviving in front of him. The old tree bark that was black and cracked like scales fell off, revealing a pure white trunk. The egg-shaped leaves shone with a divine light and were as translucent as green jade. The ancient tree was as strong as a horned dragon, and Fan Wu Jie raised his head to look at it. The broken ancient tree had already grown a broken part, but that part was just an illusion. In reality, all the divine light was just an illusion projected from the depths of time, as if the past was replaying itself. In the illusion of golden veins, the ancient tree's lush branches completely covered the sky above Fan Wu Jie's head, covering the sky. The divine light flowed, and the white divine tree shone brilliantly. But under the divine light, the dead tree was rooted in the illusion, as if the past and the present were overlapping. One was glorious, holy, and resplendent, and the other was twisted and withered, as silent as a devil. At this moment, this extraordinary divine tree appeared to be in a strange state of half withered and half flourishing in Fan Wu Jie's eyes. Fan Wu Jie's mind went numb, as if an electric current had passed through him. "This is the Bodhi tree. I got it." Fan Wu Jie instantly heard the chanting of Sanskrit in his ears. He understood that it was someone singing the Diamond Sutra while weeping blood. Fan Wu Jie saw the Bodhi tree slowly turning his head, and the pure white body that was as strong as a horned dragon slowly twisted. The towering Bodhi tree followed the twisting of the white trunk, and slowly transformed into a young monk wearing a white robe. He clasped his palms together and turned his head to look at Fan Wu Jie. Golden tears of blood flowed from his eyes. Fan Wu Jie clenched his fists tightly, and he was so nervous that he almost suffocated. The white-robed monk slowly opened his mouth and said, "This is the lonely garden of the tree." "Excellent, excellent. Subhuti, as you have said, Tathagata protects and remembers all bodhisattvas, and instructs all bodhisattvas with kindness. Today, you are Dingting, and I will speak for you. Good men and good women, the Anuttara Samyak Bodhi heart, should live like this and subdue their hearts. Only the revered one of the world is willing to listen." The chanting of Sanskrit in the surroundings had become very clear. Countless profound truths manifested in front of Fan Wu Jie, as if the revered one of the world was personally speaking. But Fan Wu Jie did not dare to listen, because there was a demonic and hellish cry in the chanting of Sanskrit, and that was the manifestation of the great Tao of destruction. The monk that was the Bodhi tree said, "This is also the Mahesvara heaven." Fan Wu Jie finally could not hold it in any longer. He felt countless truths and countless messy thoughts drilling into his mind, and he instantly understood many things. This white-robed monk was like a book that did not hide anything, and no matter how he flipped through the pages, he could see its thoughts and everything. But Fan Wu Jie was so scared that he ran away. He tore through time and returned to his original place. Fan Wu Jie said in fear, "Don't get too close to these ghost trees. They have already become spirits." Yuan Yu was confused by the sudden appearance of Fan Wu Jie in front of him. He saw that Fan Wu Jie's face was full of fear, and it could be said that he was telling everyone, "These ghost trees are alive. Don't get too close to them, or you will become a part of them." The Shui, Tu King, and Ajati were startled and quickly retreated, looking at the half-fallen ancient tree with vigilance. Fan Wu Jie waved his hand and said to everyone, "Stay away from these ghost trees. Don't get close to any of them." Everyone was startled, and although they did not know what had happened, they still followed the advice. The group gathered on the ancient Xianming ship and vigilantly looked around. But there were still 2 or 3 people who did not move, including the corpse god of the chasing corpse sect. They stood in the same place, and their aura did not change, but their faces were somewhat blank, as if they had just woken up, with a trace of sluggishness and stupefaction. Corpse god! The Chouette 2 kings stared at the strange divine trees and shouted to the corpse god, "What happened?" "Nothing. I am fine," the corpse god said slowly, and his voice was very slow, as if every word was squeezed out from between his teeth. In such a strange situation, if he said that he was fine, only a ghost would believe it. The kill-life hierarch asked Fan Wujie, "What happened? How do you know that there is something wrong with these trees?" "This is the Garden of Solitude." Fan Wujie's first sentence made all the demon Tao monarchs pale, and someone asked with a trembling voice. The Buddha said that the holy land of Buddhism, where the revered one preached, was given the Garden of Solitude. The beginning of the Diamond Sutra was, as I have heard. Once, the Buddha gave the Garden of Solitude in the country of Shiwei, together with the monks, 1,250 of them. At that time, the revered one, wearing clothes and holding alms bowls, entered the city of Shiwei to beg for food. He begged for the first time in the city, and returned to his original place. After the meal, he collected his clothes, washed his feet, and sat down. The Garden of Solitude was one of the holy lands of Buddhism, a holy land left behind by the revered one. Its position in Buddhism was similar to the mystic doors Hangu Pass, Jade Capital Mountain, Hollow Jade Temple, the Boundless Blood Sea, and the Returning Ruins. It was one of the supreme, holy lands of Buddhism. If this was the Garden of Solitude, what was a few Bodhi divine trees? Even if the Buddha's corpse was transplanted here, it would be normal. They were the direct descendants of the demon Tao, and yet they came to the holy land of Buddhism. What was this? The most frightening thing was, why would a holy land like the Garden of Solitude be found in the Returning Ruins? The place of the revered one? Why would it fall into the Returning Ruins? Thinking back, they seemed to have found Xianming's corpse. Everyone's hair stood on end. The Chouette too suppressed his nervousness and said to the corpse god, "Corpse god, who are you?" "I am a tree." The corpse god said slowly, "I am a tree." His feet didn't move. At this time, everyone saw that the corpse god's feet had sunk into the demonic soil, and the area below his ankles had turned into deep roots. The corpse god's withered appearance was changing into that of a tree. His hands had turned into branches, and his body had turned into a tree trunk. His wrinkled skin was like old tree bark. Chouette too took a deep breath and said, "They can't be saved. Let's leave this damned place." Fan Wujie was still shaken and said, "These trees are alive. Not the kind of divine spirit root they had when they were alive, but a kind of monster that was born from their corpses after they were killed by the calamity of destruction. This kind of monster can understand our words, so when I say it's crying, I hear it crying." "Shut up," Yuan Yu said with an expressionless face. Fan Wujie scratched his head in confusion. At this moment, Yuan Yu shifted his body to the side, clearing his line of sight. He saw that all the ancient trees that had taken root in the devil's soil had all awakened. They had transformed into some sort of half-ghost, half-devil monster. Looking at the white-boned devil ship, countless faint voices echoed Fan Wujie's words. "Monster! Corpses! Strange! Mahesvara! River Styx! What is life? All living beings have emotions." Fan Wujie suddenly understood something. This was the tree garden of solitude. In the era before the collapse of the prehistoric era, ancestor River Styx suppressed Luo in the ultimate, and Sakyamuni invited River Styx to the tree garden of solitude to debate the Tao, the difference between demon and Buddha, and to understand the laws between them. This event was the third debate between the demon and Buddha. This time, River Styx went alone, and the world-honored one led 3,000 disciples to welcome him. Both sides debated in the tree garden of solitude. The world honored one pursued for 7 days, and his laws were perfect, and his dharma was profound. River Styx was not at a disadvantage. Both sides debated for 3 generations, and a total of more than 30,000 years. In the end, they talked about the problem of all living beings. The disciples of Buddha said that this word referred to the ordinary people who had the troubles of ignorance and the bewilderment of life and death. All sentient beings are different, encompassing the 3 paths of sin and suffering beings, encompassing the heavenly beings, encompassing the joyous beings, encompassing the merciful beings, encompassing the everlasting beings. The world-honored one also said, those who are affected by sex are called all living beings. Those who are affected by feelings, thoughts, actions, and knowledge are called all living beings. In other words, there were all living beings, including feelings, thoughts, actions, and knowledge. In River Styx's understanding, all living beings that had feelings, thoughts, actions, and knowledge were able to perceive the objective world and could carry out subjective activities were all living beings. For example, tiny insects, plants, and the like could only feel but could not think and did not have the concept of self. Were those simple and insignificant living beings all living beings? Hence, Ancestor River Styx and the world-honored one worked together to define life. The world-honored one believed that the cause of fate was unknown, and that all phenomena arising from the combination of fate were all living beings. Hence, River Styx began to think about life. What is life? The Fan clan's 3rd ancestor said slowly and softly, "Where is the limit of life? Where is the limit of life? How can life be differentiated from non-life? Being sentient is life." The blood-soaked devil lord replied mysteriously, "Those who have emotions are those who are greedy, obsessed, and obsessed with love. If they are sentient beings with greed, love, desire, attachment, and obsession, they are sentient beings. If one desires, loves, likes, craves, clings, and is obsessed with feeling, thinking, acting, understanding, that is life. Do plants have sentient beings?" The killing sect leader retorted calmly, "Do ignorant insects with no knowledge have sentient beings?" Yuan Yu looked at their strange faces and suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. They were not talking, but demon Ancestor River Styx was talking. He finally understood what was the most dangerous thing here. This was the place where the world-honored one and demon Ancestor debated. This place was filled with the thoughts of the demon Ancestor River Styx. Now, these thoughts had invaded their primordial spirit and sea of consciousness. If Yuan Yu was not Dara, he would be in the same situation as them. He suddenly understood the thoughts of the demon Ancestor and comprehended some unfathomable mysteries. The great Tao they comprehended and the techniques they cultivated still had traces of the thoughts of the demon Ancestor. Therefore, they could involuntarily comprehend the thoughts of the River Styx and be controlled by the thoughts of the River Styx. Yuan Yu also involuntarily comprehended some things. Just like the great Tao, formless and formless, it filled his surroundings. Then he could involuntarily comprehend it. The great Tao here was the thoughts of the River Styx. Life is a type of variable, something that can create variables and is unrestrained as life. Life is a variable. The power to create different timelines is life. Variable is a false proposition. Life can be controlled. Life is a phenomenon that naturally appears in the development and change of the universe. It has a certain degree of self-growth, reproduction, feeling, consciousness, will, evolution, interaction, and other rich possibilities. The roots of the countless demon trees in the Garden of Solitude started wriggling. They were like water parting and stirring up waves of soil. The black demon soil seemed to be stirring up waves. The huge roots moved underground. They murmured softly, telling the thoughts of the River Styx. The lifted demon soil revealed the things buried underneath. There were skeletons and corpses that looked like gold, glass, and crystal. Some of them were sitting cross-legged. Some were lying on the ground. and some had their hands clasped together and their heads drooped in front of their chests. Some of the corpses were still in the state of struggling in front of them. One of the corpses was even clawing at the ground, maintaining the posture of crawling in the direction that Fan Wujie and the others had come from. Many of the corpses were still in the final state of escaping this place. These are the corpses of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Yuan Yu said in horror when he saw the countless corpses buried under the demon soil. There's no lack of venerable Dara here. There are even a few famous Bodhisattvas.